Ờ, một một hai 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 ba. Alo alo, một một hai hai. Alo, một hai ba bốn năm sáu sáu. Một hai ba. Alo 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 alo, một một hai ba bốn. Alo alo, một hai ba bốn năm sáu. Alo, một hai một hai ba bốn năm sáu. Có chưa anh? Một hai ba bốn năm sáu. Alo, một hai ba. Alo, một hai ba bốn năm sáu bảy. Alo, một hai ba bốn.
Nhắc studio chụp ảnh ở không một tiếng nhiều hơn đấy nhá, để khách làm truyền thông anh nhá. Chị khách dặn em là chụp phòng Hải Phòng nhiều hơn.
Để em tắt nhạc
Để
nhá.
làm truyền thông nhá.
Tắt,
Phòng
tắt
VIP
nhạc.
ạ.
Alo, một hai ba bốn năm sáu. Một hai ba bốn năm sáu bảy.
Ok anh.
Có nghe được không ạ? Alo, một hai ba bốn năm sáu. Một hai ba bốn năm sáu.
Nó thu vào rồi đấy.
Alo, một hai hai ba bốn năm sáu. Một hai ba bốn năm sáu.
Hi, hi, hi.
Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to welcome all of you for our first APEC IPv6 Council meeting. I'm Vali, the Chief Secretary of the Council, and I'll also be your MC. On behalf of the APEC IPv6 Council, I would like to welcome all of you. It is indeed our privilege to have all of you us today face-to-face or via the live stream. There are a few members who have joined us through Zoom link also. We appreciate you taking time off your busy schedules to join us today. To kickstart our event for this afternoon, Professor Sureshwaran Ramadas will be presenting the welcoming address. Better known as Prof. Suresh, is the chairman of the APEC IPv6 Council. He is currently a professor emeritus at the Malaysian University of Science and Technology. He is also currently the emeritus chair of the IPv6 Forum Education Certification Program. He was the founding director of the National Advanced IPv6 Center of Excellence, NAV6, of University Sains Malaysia, under the Ministry of Communications and Multimedia Malaysia. Prof. Suresh.
Thank you, Ms. Wali. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all had a good lunch. Food was very good. Service was even better. Very good. I'd like to thank our host, VN Nick, especially Mr. Tang, who has graciously agreed to host us and host this meeting today. This is an inaugural meeting. So this is the first official full-fledged meeting of the APEC IPv6 Council. Otherwise, we have had meetings on the side, and the executive committee has been having several meetings as well. But this is the first time we have actually opened it and had a full-fledged meeting. And during this meeting, we have invited presentations as well from outside parties and members. And there's been overwhelming response, as which from 30 minutes, we had to cut presentations down to 20, and we had to even reject some presentations. But not to worry, the second APEC IPv6 Council meeting will be held in Penang, Malaysia. Time frame will be November 2024, so roughly about 6 months from now. Okay. Weather will be good in Penang, hopefully, no rain. Weather is good in Hanoi today, so okay. A little bit about what the council is, what we do. Which one, Wally? Try and see. Don't like me. The green one, is it? No. The arrow. Okay, thank you. So we are a non-profit organization established basically to collaborate with government, industry, and academia to develop a strategic strategic roadmaps that outlines the key initiatives and milestones for promoting IPv6 adoption in the APAC region. Now, some questions have been asked to me. What is the difference between the IPv6 Forum and the APAC IPv6 Council? Now, the APAC IPv6 Council is born from the Forum, but it is separate. So the Forum focuses on industry and industry members. So if you have a forum in Vietnam, for example, their focus is to move industry members, ISPs, to move towards IPv6. Council is different. Council works at the government level. So council advises governments, work together with governments. If you're a government office or a regulator that says, look, we're stuck in this one problem we're having with IPv6, or we can't get the banks to migrate to IPv6, can you help us? That's when we come in. we come in and assist them. We work with organizations in the region. We work, for example, with APNIC here. We work, of course, with the IPv6 Forum, IPv6 Forum Educational branch as well. So we work with all these different organizations to basically bring a concerted IPv6 solution to the governments. Even ITU, we work with ITU as well. Right? So we cut everything short, and if you're a government agency, you're a country which needs help in a particular area in IPv6, you call us, we come and help you. That's our job. Okay. So our vision is to basically move the internet to IPv6. You've already heard Paul Wilson and a lot of others talk about IPv6 today. It's very simple, there's no more IPv4 addresses, right? So we need to move to IPv6. And currently, this is our committee members, EXCO members. You have Dr. Latif Ladid, who's the president of the IPv6 Global Forum. He sits as an advisor to us. I'm the chair right now. Krishna, sitting right here, he's the vice chair. Mr. Robin Lee, unfortunately, he couldn't come and be physically present with us today, but he's virtually here. Mr. Will Liu is the steering committee member, and Ms. Wali, who's the head secretariat. The other members, there are quite a few other members we have who are supporting us. One of it is Ms. Ruby Ong. She is secretariat. We have Mr. Saravanan, he is finance manager. We have Mr. Lim Soon Seng, he is the auditor. And we have Mr. Hafiz, or Dr. Hafiz. Dr. Hafiz is the technical manager. And Dr. Ashraf takes a look at regulatory and policy issues. What are the goals? Our goals, the first line basically says the whole thing, promote IPv6 awareness and education. Right? We drive IPv6 policy making, regulatory framework creation as well in the APAC region. That means if a country says, look, we are going to move to IPv6, but we think we should also have regulations with it, we can help with that as well. Facilitate IPv6 test and deployment infrastructure. So the particular expert for this is Mr. Krishna. So his field of expertise is that. To monitor and evaluate the progress of V6 adoption, so we do this on a regular basis. We will collect information and update our members. Engage with international forums to foster global collaboration. So we will make sure that we get other organizations to support us. Other organizations means organizations like APT, Asia Pacific Telecommunity, ITU, ITUD, APNIC, the RIRs as well, ICANN as well. Identification of member states, key stakeholders, and current adoption rates and challenges, strategies, and potential solutions. Communicating with member states and establishing correspondence with them. So we will write, we will talk, we will have meetings with member states. Define strategic roadmaps under the Council for everyone. IPv6 capacity building. So this is important and a huge thing for us. Right now, IPv6 technically, hardware-wise, it's not an issue. Anything, almost anything and everything you buy is IPv6 supported, right? So the next stage, there are two different players or levels of players in the world today. First ones are those, the higher ones are those whose ISPs have already started migrating or have migrated. Vietnam is at that stage. Most of the ISPs have migrated. Malaysia is at that stage. A lot of countries are at that stage. The ISPs have been doing a great job moving because IPv4 has gotten very expensive. So it makes sense to move IPv6. Third, the second stage countries are those countries where even the ISPs are struggling. And those are the countries that really we need to assist. But don't forget the first stage countries. Now, what is happening is, and if you really sit down and think about it, you'll understand what I'm saying. A lot of countries, while ISPs, which means mobile phone and internet in the home, is now IPv6 because the ISPs have migrated you, organizations, universities, companies, where internet lands and it doesn't land in one box, it lands through a router, they are still IPv4. 90%, 95% of them have not moved to IPv6. Why? They get one IPv4 address, they NAT it, they're happy in their office, they've been always doing it, nobody says move, nothing is there to encourage them to move, so why move? Right? And they haven't trained their IT guy with the correct skill sets to move. So that's where we come in. So the first level countries means, you could be 80% IPv6, but surprisingly, inside the offices, they're still IPv4. Even they need help. And that's where we are moving today. For example, in Malaysia, the big push now is to get organizations to migrate. Right? In the sense of numbers, you're not going to see a huge difference in number. But in the sense of actual real numbers that are happening in the companies, big. Right? I can tell you clearly, 95%, 99% of organizations in Malaysia may have IPv6 but haven't moved to IPv6. The ISP is almost 100%. So that's our target now. Participate, conduct international conferences, workshops, and so on. Currently, we have done the V6 Enhance and 5G Global Conference. And this is another key initiative. As countries are moving to 5G, we're supporting the IPv6 over 5G initiative very strongly. CyberOz in Australia, IEEE IOTAS in Bali, Apricot in Bangkok, and then technical contributions to V6 Enhance Council for APAC region, SRv6 deployment guidelines for the APAC region, SRv6 to IoT IPv6 ready logo programs, and also there's one more called the iFit. We've done the iFit IPv6 communications as well. Collaborate with forums, regulators, and organizations across APAC to increase awareness and cultivate best practices for IPv6 implementation. We're members of WBBA, we're members of the ITU APT in India as well. Some of the other initiatives by the Council in Australia was the CyberOz, and then in Jakarta in 2023 was the Indonesian meeting. And in Council, its introduction to China in November 2023, we were in Shenzhen, and then again in December on Christmas Day, we were in Shenzhen. So in the December event was to sign the launching of NIDA, which is a research and development community. And in November, it was basically with WBBA and to move IPv6 there. IPv6 Council's introduction into Indonesia was another summit in Jakarta in December. Communications with member states and establishing correspondence to encourage the participation in IPv6 initiatives. So we have been seriously talking to certain departments where we have key strengths in. For example, the Telecommunication Authority of India, Malaysian Multimedia and Communication Commission, Republic of Indonesia's Ministry of Communications, and VNIC here in Vietnam itself. These are organizations that have already approached us or that we have been working with for a while now. We are expanding this list rapidly. To participate and conduct international conferences, we are doing, by the way, we are doing the APT workshop in Malaysia. And this is present and future in 2024. So the APT workshop in Malaysia is jointly between the IPv6 Forum Malaysia, hosted by IPv6 Forum Malaysia and the Asia Pacific Telecommunity. It is an IPv6 workshop for regulators and government. And what does it focus on? How to build roadmaps, how to build planning, how to do budgeting for IPv6. Very important for the level 2 countries, which are planning to do a whole development for their network to move to IPv6. This is a good workshop to attend. We have closed registration because it is full. If any of you want to come in, let me know. We have 15 different countries that will be coming physically, and I think another 12 virtually. So we limited participation physically to 30 and limited participation virtually to 55. It's free, by the way, for APT. All of you are APT members, but it's free. Or IPv6 forum members. Technical contributions to IPv6 Enhanced Council for the APAC region. We have worked on the SRv6 deployment guidelines. We worked on SRv6 and IoT ready logo programs and the IFIT development guidelines as well. Collaboration with forums, regulators, and organizations. APNIC, ITO APT Foundation of India. We just signed the MOU with APAN. APAN stands for Asia Pacific Advanced Networks. It's a very old organization that is a collaboration between researchers. MC Malaysia, Bharat IPv6 Forum, NICSI in India, Huawei in China. IPv6 capacity building for awareness, training, testing, development, deployment, best practices through white papers, blogs, and technical recommendations. IPv6 evolution roadmap. This is a key one. This is a good roadmap that our countries can take a look at on how to evolve. Transition to IPv6 only networks for the government infrastructure, cybersecurity measures for IPv6 only networks, training programs for engineers as well. These are our member organizations as of today. So all these organizations have signed up with us to be members. These are contributing members. So these are people who have actually given presentations or have given documentation to the organization. We encourage people to join. Membership is free. You can go, you can click on members registration and join. Individual membership is free. Organizational membership is still free, but we plan to maybe add a little surcharge on it in the following years. Thank you. Answer questions? So, is there any questions regarding the APAC V6 Council? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Suresh. Now I would like to welcome our special guest, Mr. Hong Tang, Director General of VNIC. He plays an important role in building and developing the entire technical system of Vietnam, National NIC, including important national internet infrastructure systems like the National DNS Domain Name Server Names .vn and Vietnam National Interchange Exchange VNX. In 2018, he was awarded the title IPv6 Hall of Fame for his contributions to promoting the development and applications of IPv6. So,
thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to say on behalf of VNIC, the organizer of VNIC Internet Conference today, I would like to say thank you for all of you to come to Vietnam, Hanoi, and have a very important, the first meeting of IPv6 Council Forum. And we would like to say thank you for believe us and trust us to host the first meeting of IPv6 Council Forum in Hanoi together with the VNIC Internet Conference 2024. The IPv6 is currently adopted on the internet, around 40% in the APAC region, and in Vietnam is 60%, and Malaysia is number one in the Asia, is maybe 68%. Okay, so we are here sitting together and discuss about the important thing of the internet is the IPv6. And IPv6 is the future of the internet and the very near future. I think that from my point of view, IPv6 will be more popular and IPv6 only maybe in 2030. IPv6 only may be very popular, and after that IPv4 will be disappear. So we come here discuss very important thing of the internet. So we put the heavy duty in a shoulder. So we sit together to share the mission and work together for the future, the better future of the internet. So VNIC is a government organization, but we self-fund and non-profit. We work for the community. We work for the internet, and we hope that internet will be more global, open, secure, and stable. And once again, on behalf of VNIC, welcome all of you to Hanoi, Vietnam. I know that some of you is the first time in Hanoi. Yeah. And some of you have come here very often. Mr. Suret, my friend, VNIC friend, he came here many times and do some workshop for Vietnamese communities, engineer from government agency, but also engineer from the ISP in Vietnam. We do together for the IPv6 training, even the 4G, IPv6 with 4G, for IPv6 IoT about 7 years ago. So we have a very early awareness about the IPv6 on the mobile and IoT network. At the time, nobody understand. They focus only the IPv6 on the core network only. But Suret come here and raise the awareness and give them some roadmap. Yeah, some with the support from the international partner like from Malaysia, from APNIC or some other country. APNIC is one of active, and I remember we have successfully promote the IPv6 adoption in Vietnam. So we are still on the way to movement to the internet future, IPv6 only. So at the end of this conference, and so the meeting, we would like to invite all of you to join the friendly dinner in a very beautiful restaurant in near to Hoàn Kiếm Lake in the center of Hanoi, the downtown. Very beautiful lake tonight. So please spend the time to join the dinner and we discuss more. And tomorrow we have a social event to another city next to Hanoi, in the south of Hanoi, about 2 hours from Hanoi by bus. So it's a very beautiful area. It's the old capital of Vietnam many years ago. So I also hope to you enjoy the tour tomorrow and more understand to each other, understand the Vietnamese culture. Yeah, and hope to see you again soon in Vietnam in somewhere. Thank you.
We request you to say once. We request Prof. Suresh to present a ceremonial gift as a token of appreciation. Thank you, Mr. Hong Tang. Thank you, Prof. I would like to invite Mr. Krishna Kumar Lahoti, Vice Chair of APAC IPv6 Council and is a Director of CN Labs. His true passion lies in promoting and advocating for the widespread adoption of IPv6. His remarkable achievements have earned him several accolades, including the prestigious IPv6 Hall of Fame 2022 award by the IPv6 Forum. May we now invite Mr. Krishna to present about enhanced cybersecurity measures for IPv6 only networks.
Thank you, Wally. Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My today's topic is the enhanced cybersecurity measures for IPv6 only networks. But before I delve deep into my topic, I'll like to build upon what Professor Suresh has already mentioned. One of the key things he has mentioned is the enterprises are currently undergoing the IPv6 transformation. And how do we monitor that, right? Because one of the key points he's mentioned is even though they have the IPv6 addresses allocated to them, they've purchased them, but they are not fully utilizing or implementing IPv6 within their own networks. For that, the Asia Pacific IPv6 Council and my organization CN Labs, we have created these open source tools for monitoring of IPv6 adoption rate. That tool is built from the baseline of the US government's adoption monitoring tool that's developed by NIST. And you can monitor almost, we have developed it for India, about 3,000 different websites. And we monitor IPv6 implementation on the web service, on the email service, on the DNS service, and how much DNSSEC is also implemented. So tools like these can be very important in terms of monitoring different levels of IPv6 adoption that's going on in government agencies or in the industries or even in universities. So after my presentation, I'll probably share that link of the tool with all of you. Coming back to the enhanced cybersecurity measures for IPv6 only networks, cybersecurity has always been looked upon in terms of IPv4 only because v6 was not being pushed or implemented at a very strong level. And now we're talking a lot of cybersecurity in terms either in the US or in Australia, where we have the Australian cybersecurity strategy. Even in India, you have the Indian telecom security assurance requirements. Those are mandatory for all telecom equipment before being sold or imported or used in India. The devices must be tested by government designated laboratories for certain security requirements. And our role, mine personally from CN Labs as well as from the Asia Pacific IPv6 Council, is to make sure that the cybersecurity policies also have the required amount of IPv6 oriented details in that. Yes, so when we are talking about transitioning towards IPv6 only networks, so it is very important that the cybersecurity aspect of it is looked upon in parallel and not in silos. So various deployments and implementation, they need to ensure that there is a v6 centric policies that are created, regulations that are created from a perspective of cybersecurity's regulations as well. The various types of things that need to be looked upon is that IPv6 introduces new attack surfaces. If you look at RFC 8200, they have 7 different types of security considerations, and there is a lack of preparedness. Generally, the security policies are focused on IPv4. If you look at the traditional vulnerability assessment that is done on various different devices or even applications, it's always v4 centric, but there is a need to change it towards v6. Then there is a complexity involved where the IPv6 expanded addressing and header structure introduces some new variables. There is a scarcity of expertise where the shortage of IPv6 security expert, that is something that we as Asia Pacific IPv6 Council and even the IPv6 Forum's education department is trying to fill in by giving the required amount of trainings and workshops at different levels across the industries and governments. And the global nature of IPv6, it also requires robust security mechanisms. There are business critical applications like industrial control systems and IoT devices, etc., that also needs to be looked upon. Then there is the regulatory compliance angle where data protection, network security, and IPv6 enabled policies are being implemented. Now, on one hand, you have countries like China and India where IPv6 testing is mandatory before a product can be sold or imported or used in that particular geography. But that also means that the v6 aspect also needs to be looked upon, because on one hand, you're saying they need to be enabled by default, the IPv6, even as part of the IPv6 Ready Logo program, we have this as a mandatory requirement that even on the management interface, the IPv6 needs to be enabled by default. And then there are rapid technological advancements with new technologies like 5G and SRv6 and blockchain and etc., where various new challenges can be seen in terms of security. So what does the enhanced security measures for IPv6 only network should look like is, there is network segmentation and firewalls. You have your perimeter devices where IPv6 ready devices need to be implemented, and so that they can take care of all the IPv6 security policies as well. There are intrusion detection and prevention systems that are also perimeter devices at some stages, and they also need to be IPv6 capable or IPv6 ready. You have the encryption and authentication mechanisms, various access control lists, the policies and procedures that need to be implemented specific to IPv6. Then there is address management aspect. The USA's National Security Agency, they have this IPv6 security deployment guideline in which they talk about how the addressing management should be done from a security perspective. You have other things like the threat intelligence and monitoring. You have the transition mechanisms, tunneling by itself, as we've seen some of the things in the tunneling sectors where security can be a bit challenging. You have periodic security audits from a V6 only perspective, because the current ISO 27001 and other standards that are there, like ETSI 303645 or FIPS or common criteria, their focus is more on the V4 side and less on the V6 side. Training and awareness, as we all talk about it, vendor security collaboration, and the incident response plans. These are some of the measures that need to be looked upon more in the V6 context. Enhanced, these are the best practices for the secure V6 only networks, where we have the traditional vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, the likes of FIPS 140-3 or common criteria, EU RED 3.3, the new regulation that is coming in. You see, there are very less focus on IPv6, but when we are adopting the same security regulations in India, some of our inputs were taken very seriously by the Department of Telecommunication in India, and they have managed to introduce certain V6 related security test cases for IP routers and for Wi-Fi CPEs. They have published the Indian telecom security assurance requirements for 40 different product categories, and V6 is part of most of them. You need regular security audits from V6 experts who have also the cyber security expertise in terms of the network infrastructure security audits. And then there are address misconfigurations, compliance with international standards, evaluation of security controls, patch management, third-party lab validations, and continuous improvement and risk management. The training and awareness, more specifically from the IPv6 specific threats, the proper configuration and usage, V6 specific securities, best practices, IoT, and bring your own device related awareness, monitoring, reporting, incident response, and continuous improvement. Now, when you get to know about IPv6, there used to be this particular argument that V6 is more secure than V4, but that is true only when it is deployed or configured to make sure that all its features and capabilities are utilized when the deployment is done. Some of the guides for secure IPv6 deployment is a very old one, the NIST SP 800-119 from USA's National Institute of Standards and Technology. The concept of defense in depth was introduced, the vulnerabilities in IPv6 were talked about, and there are security considerations from addressing, tunneling, translation mechanisms, and a bunch of other things. And then you have the Securing IPv6 white paper that was published during the CyberOz event in Sydney, Australia, as part of the inauguration of our new lab there. And the three main points to be considered there were the perimeter-related security approaches, the infrastructure, the core infrastructure-related V6 security, and the V6 security on the endpoint. So this white paper is available for download on the CyberOz website, and maybe we can share the links with you after this conference. And then you have the National Security Agency's IPv6 security guidance. They've talked about various different security mechanisms that need to be implemented at SLAC, which is the stateless address auto configuration, automatic tunneling, dual stack, which is a stopgap measure of all things, and then you have the IPv6 education and training. We have some case studies in terms of how enterprises who are trying to adopt IPv6 in their own networks. We've worked as Asia Pacific IPv6 Council and even as CN Labs, we've worked with some of these enterprises in India and in other parts of the world, where how, if they are trying to adopt IPv6 within their own networks, what kind of security related practices they need to take care. And then that is how I have developed this slide deck, where enhanced network segmentation. They also had a lot of IoT deployment, so there was an IoT security framework. It becomes even more critical nowadays, the IoT security, and it's considered the manufacturer's usage description specification, RFC 8520. It talks about the device's network security requirement, network communication requirements, using which a network administrator can automatically filter the required IP addresses and the other subnets and the different ports that the device needs access to. That is where the V6 part also comes into play. And then you have the IPv6 centric testing and monitoring. There are different standards available. There are different specifications available. What is currently missing is a proper and full-fledged IPv6 security conformance test specification. That is something that we as Asia Pacific Council in collaboration with the V6 Forum are working towards. And then the results were the corporation was able to achieve a robust IPv6 only network within a segment of their own larger network, which seamlessly integrated its IoT devices, and there were no security breaches related to the vulnerabilities. Then you have the government agencies, secure IPv6 implementation. US government V6 program is a very good example of how a government agency can adopt this particular IPv6, secure IPv6 approach. There's trainings at various levels, there's testing involved at various levels. There are third-party labs that are accredited by NIST, who is managing the USG V6 program. We are one of those labs is us. And being there in the first place means that we have this first-hand information related to all the security mechanisms related to V6 that we are currently being part of, and there are various, the Cyber Security Framework 2.0, which NIST is currently developing. We are also working towards that. So all in all, there is a V6-centric security approach that is very critical for the future networks, as Thang and even Suresh were mentioning that by 2030, we are looking at purely IPv6 only internet, hopefully, and that is where some of these things become very important. A comprehensive IPv6 security conformance testing and auditing specification is something that needs to be developed, because currently you have various different security testing standards, auditing standards, but in one place with respect to V6, the information is not currently available in one particular document, which is something that we are trying to develop. Unique security challenges to be addressed in the V6 only networks. There are a variety of enhanced cybersecurity measures that need to be adopted. Proactively address V6 specific vulnerabilities, collaborate, train, test, implement along with the Asia Pacific IPv6 Council, stay updated with emerging threats, advancements in IPv6 security technology, and security is obviously a continuously evolving space. So collaborating with different stakeholders and trying to learn what's currently relevant is the most important thing. That's all, I guess. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Krishna, for your sharing. We now welcome Mr. Liu Shui from VIA China. He is the Assistant Director of China Future Internet Engineering Center and Ambassador of the International Data Spaces Association, focusing on promoting the development of IPv6 and data technology standards and international technical cooperation.
Distinguished guests, dear Mr. Tao, Professor Ramadas, and Mr. Wilson, very nice to meet you all. And it's a great pleasure that I stand before you. I think what I'm about to present today is a little bit delicate and yeah, but very innovative, I guess. Forgive me, I think the light here, I cannot get used to it. I'll just take this seat. Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay. Okay. As you can see the picture, this is back in 2018. We also have a VNIC representative in China. We're actually promoting IPv6 in general in the Asia Pacific region. So, and of course, I'm very privileged that I have the opportunity to join one of the leading forces in China that promotes IPv6 for over 2 decades. And together with, rubbing shoulders with all the most important figures of IPv6 in the world. Yes, it's a very great honor. And I'm very glad that today I have the opportunity, I'm in Hanoi, to support the Vietnam agenda, of course, IPv6. So it's a very, thank you for having me, Mr. Tang. Yeah, okay. So, I think we can all agree that IPv6 is already a global consensus, but none of this will happen without each and everyone's efforts and along the decades. I must say that this is sometimes, from my perspective, as an observer in China, so sometimes the administration can really plays a really important and irreplaceable in promoting this. At least that's the case for my country. So next, I listed some of the most recent measures and action plans released by country, and we can see most of which are from the countries that in the region. And we can see the IPv6 technology is gradually becoming the mainstream, the cornerstone of the next generation internet already. But I think, however, there are still some challenges going forward and problems in the deployment of application of IP version 6, such as lack of IPv6 application scenarios, trying to find a killer app, and for some cases, in some cases, the high cost of IPv6 deployment. I'm sure the other experts today will contribute to address this issue and share some of the best practices on this agenda. Okay. Okay. So this is the part where it can be very excited. And if we as we officially enter the era of IPv6, and I'm sure we all know why it is IPv6, because the industry enters innovative development and a new stage of value improvement. For that, we need to still keep up doing what we're doing. And the internet, I think, has already become an integral part for all of us today. It's like the water and the electricity. It disappears as a technology, but it's already part of our lives. We cannot simply live without it. For us, it's very irreplaceable, and this is how we can actually use the internet every single day. On the bottom layer, we have the physical infrastructure providers and providing access for connection. On the top layer, and we have the different applications we use every day, and the most important part, the middle layer, that really allow us to have access to the internet. And for instance, if you want to Google something, I think it's a query. What happens is a query is sent to the root authority first, and then it tells you where this is that you are trying to looking for, and navigate you to the destination. Of course, the entire progress takes milliseconds before you even know it. And so this is probably the most valuable and significant internet infrastructure that we're talking. But I think, unfortunately, such core internet infrastructure was not geographically equally distributed. We all know the story. In Asia, we only have one such thing in Japan, and with the other 10 in US and 2 in EU. Starting from the ARPANET from 1969 until 1997, all 13 root authorities, finished the allocation. And if you ever read the Professor Milton Muller's book, Ruling the Root, or ever heard the story of India requesting to have such a infrastructure, so then you know what I'm talking about. So even though it's obvious that any country's request is reasonable regarding this, as it aligns with long-standing call for a more democratic distribution of internet resources and autonomy, while also being in line with its own interest in the multi-stakeholder global internet governance environment. I think it is what it is for IPv4, but the legacy internet we call today. But what if I tell you, as we enter and embrace the IPv6-based new internet, and we might actually be able to achieve what we have wished for. 20 years ago, in the spirit of the internet, the running code innovation, we set our foot on the journey of seeking for a root authority, like India. our primary intention is to know what a root authority really look like. And after decades of experiment and exchange with multi-stakeholders, we managed to expand to 25 root authorities when it is in IPv6. And 10 years ago, we launched the Yeti project. It's a test bed to verify our thinking. Before we do that, of course, there's one principle. So one namespace, one internet, and one world. And simply put, Yeti is all about extraordinary innovation. So together with all the interested parties from all over the world, we successfully put this off. And it's very worth mentioning that we do not only attract interested parties from all over the world. Still, we have the regional system operators, such as the WIDE and from the United States, and one of the root authority operators these days. And of course, with the new dynamics that we established, we can see it's very obvious. It's much more geographically equal. That I think that speaks on. I speak on behalf of the Asian people. That we have the majority internet users in the world, but lack of such core internet resources. So this slide simply concludes what we get out of Yeti testbed. When we initially designed this architecture, trying to find out what the root authority may look like, we believe it'd be better if the distribution master, the VeriSign, which is can be prioritized by multiple parties. Say we have the assumption that whether we can have multiple DMs or going further, everyone can play their DMs to achieve autonomy. Why not? And as a result, this is another accomplishment of Yeti testbed. We try to examine the possibility and verify. And in addition, we found out that the IPv6 root authority can serve the internet users better with the listed performances, with low latency and high performance in comparison to the original system. But yes, it's a test bed. But with all the efforts made in the test bed, they get us thinking, why not take one step forward? We start to try something real, which is to employ this in the commercial network. And it requires a strict and thorough plan to deploy this. We are aware of this. So we had a very close relationship with, domestically speaking, with the Chinese ISPs. And we had our trials and start this consortium. Some of you might know Mr. Gupta, Professor Ramadas, and perhaps a VNIC representative, but that was 5 years ago. More than 13 countries joining us. Until now, China alone, we serve more than 800 million IPv6 users in this system. And it has been stable over the years from day one. And now we see this as an innovative solution for IPv6 as an application that applies for many scenarios. And today, I think we're ready to share the technology with partners and everyone who's interested in this agenda. Okay. Yeah. And apart from the root server system, we also provide IPv6 public DNS. If you're still using IPv4, in some cases, I strongly suggest that you try and configure this right now, right here, and just give it a trial. You will see why IPv6 is the future. Yeah, it's very obvious. And last but not least, I think this is the part where it's very relevant to Krishna here. Yes. I want to share some of my thoughts that I think that our Vietnam directors and friends can draw on to push forward the agenda of IPv6 development. we're deeply involved with the IPv6 Ready Logo program, which just presented previously by Krishna. It is a globally recognized, for many countries such as major economics. The IPv6 Forum IPv6 Ready Logo program is a conformance and interoperability testing program. The objective is to verify the deployment ability of devices in IPv6 networking, the specifications, and to issue such a logo, a certification to devices that meet the requirements, and thereby to increasing your credibility of your client. So it's a third party, globally recognized, yes. And currently, okay. And this is the part that I want to introduce to Mr. Tang. And the testing specifications of IPv6 Ready have already become a reference standard for IPv6 testing in many countries. Take Malaysia, where Professor Ramadas came from. The administration, for instance, simply adopted IPv6 Ready core protocols test specification, and they made such an action plan and the policy. It can be very effective to simply just develop IPv6 in the region, in a way, yes. And also, I think Brazil is on the way. And these are the clients that we already serve on a global scale. And right now, it's very diverse. If we're talking about the diversity of the products, even the Tesla is one of our key accounts these days. Okay, so I think IPv6 Ready Logo program is of very great significance to help to promote IPv6 in the world. And together with all our friends in different countries, we will continue doing and strengthen our commitment on global IPv6 deployment. And I think the thing I want to quickly sum up here is on one hand, we believe the 6 ORIs, the root server system that I just presented, is not just a technical solution. It's more like a strategic choice. Why not have the redundancy? And it's a global initiative that will help fulfill and shape the IPv6-based new internet. And by embracing IPv6 and building such a more robust root server system, and we can ensure that the internet remains an open, accessible, inclusive, the objectives that we've been hearing over the decades, and the most important thing, we can create new opportunities for innovation and, in a way, boost the digital economy. So I think harmony is not about what's lasting or permanent. It's about individual voices coming together. So I think we should join our hands, and it requires global joint efforts, and of course with the most important figures in the industry, and we should do this together. And for us, we're willing to share what we already have verified, and just let us know, and we will be of help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Liu Shui. Ladies and gentlemen, do we have any questions for him? Okay, thank you. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Oan. She has been working in the Internet Resource Management Department, VNIC, for more than 4 years. Her main role is promoting IPv6 deployment in Vietnam, taking care almost of all IPv6 promotion activities of the Standing Committee for the Vietnam National IPv6 Task Force. Ms. Oan?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Oan from VNIC and started bio for a long time ago, but it's my my colleagues just send the bio. Okay, it's not a matter. I'm from VNIC, and also I'm the deputy director of IPNS number, domain name, resources management of VNIC. And also I am the NRC chair of our region VNIC community. And I'm very happy today to share with you the Vietnam IPv6 deployment Yes. The overview of Vietnam, we start for a long time ago. We already have two national IPv6 action plan for the whole activity in Vietnam from the 2011 to 2019. And after that, we moved to the focus for government agency because, as you know, first we focus on big ISP, mobile operator, but otherwise we believe that government agencies need to deploy IPv6. So we had the special plan for government agency. And you can see in the rank, we got the number of the use of IPv6 in Vietnam, and up to now we got 60% of internet user connected to internet via IPv6. And also we rank the top 10 of the IPv6 deployment in the world. And why we deploy IPv6, I think the reason we talk about why we deploy IPv6, why we had the meeting today, because IPv6 is the future of internet, I think so. Because IPv4 is the host, we didn't have any IPv4. And as you know, we also manage a lot of IP members in Vietnam. However, they always go to VNIC and ask one more IPv4. We said, sorry, but it's the policy of region. We cannot you cannot apply more IPv4, just the last 23 up to right now. Yeah, so we just promote them to deploy IPv6, and maybe IPv6 only in the future, they can help them to expand the network and service as well. And also the advantage of IPv6, the new technology focused for IPv6 standard, and otherwise a lot of countries in the world. Yeah, US, India, Japan, and another like Malaysia, Vietnam, and some countries. For example, Laos also promote IPv6 as well. And so I think Vietnam is one of the active country to promote IPv6. You can see our policy. Yeah, we start officially the policy in 2008 with the directive from government, from ministry. So after that, we had a lot of the policies year by year, for a long time ago. You can see the detail. And also we look forward to the decision of the Prime Minister of our government on the program for national digital information by 2025. And the target of IPv6 to look forward the entire Vietnam internet transit to IPv6. Yeah. And also we had a lot of policy from government. You can see in we have the directive number 2, number 3 of the government in 2022, 2023 to promote government agency to deploy IPv6. I think because regulation very important, you can understand that the company can deploy IPv6 because it's a new technology. However, the government agency, the hospital, the university, IP member as well, they didn't, because they can connect internet, they don't care about the IPv4 and IPv6. So if we need to regulation, because the regulation can make them understand, deep understanding the importance of IPv6. And also recently this year we got the decision of the Prime Minister on approving the information and communication infrastructure master plan for the period 2020 to 2030, and with a vision toward 2050 to look forward that can promote IPv6 better in Vietnam. And some activity in Vietnam, we like some suggested about training is one of the important. So also some college can join the workshop in Malaysia, I think next month, right? So also we also another training for our member and our community in Vietnam. And basically, we have 5 to 10 courses in per year for our region, our community. And also we had another meeting with directing to the ISP, mobile operator. First, we focus on one of the biggest ISP, and after that we move to another. And also we keep to support the government agency via the consultant meeting as well. And also we had a lot of activity like VNIC Internet Conference, IP member meeting, and IPv6 forum in Vietnam to hope they can deep understand the importance of IPv6. So it's how we promote activity, IPv6 deployment in Vietnam. And also we had built the framework of IPv6 plan for the government agency with the three places with the 10 steps. And it's our making VNIC. And also, yeah, the result of the government agency in Vietnam is look good after we had the plan, the IPv6 follow-up plan. So government start to deploy IPv6. And as you know, we start to focus on government agency from exactly like 5 years ago, I think 7 years ago. And officially, when the government released the plan, the official plan, national plan, so the government deep understanding, and so they have more activity to deploy IPv6 with their network. And now we look forward that we can finish, complete the plan in next year, 2025. And the measurement of IPv6 for the service, almost there was 76% of the FTTH subscriber enable IPv6, and mobile operator nearly 70%. So, and also VNIC also we take care for VNIX and the national DNS because we are CCTLD manager, but also we are take care for Vietnam Internet Exchange. So almost 100% peer by IPv6 connecting to VNIX, and also DNS national DNS also support IPv6 as well. And you can see, I think it's the four biggest ISP and mobile operator in Vietnam deploy IPv6 with the great number of IPv6 adoption. It's why we got the great number of Vietnam. That's something? No? Okay. And Quatec is our target in the near future. Just in this year and next year, we look forward to keep a lot of activity to support IPv6. And also we look forward to get 70 to 80% US IPv6 in Vietnam in next year. And also we look forward to support and 100% of IPv6 subscriber for broadband. And also we look forward to all of the IDC cloud hosting provider to deploy IPv6. And of course, I think IPv6 only is the future of internet, the future of the activity. So we look forward from 2026 to 2030, we promote for IPv6 only in Vietnam. And also, I think I believe that you have heard about the IPv6 Plus. So we think it's the new, new concept. I think I heard from the Suresh. I'm not sure, but in the IPv6 IoT week, and I think it's a great concept. So I think it's the future of internet, because we not only IPv6 connect to the basic internet use service, but also a new service like IoT, AI, 5G, 6G in the future. Yes, it's the look inside of internet in Vietnam. We internet into Vietnam from 1997, I think 26 years ago. 27 years ago. And only the first, we just have only one AIS number from VNPT. They connect to internet by IPv4 only. And after that, we promote IPv6, and officially in Vietnam IPv6 run in 2030. So in 2013, and connect internet basically by IPv4 only, and IPv4 with IPv6 use like technology. And this year, we look forward to have some ISP, some big content providers that can deploy IPv6 only in Vietnam. And we look forward in Vietnam has 30 years of internet. We move to IPv6 only, and IPv6 use like technology. And I believe that is the future of internet when we in 2030. Maybe the internet, basically the internet of the world move to IPv6 only. That I think that is the draft map. We think IPv6 deployment in Vietnam will go in this slide. This is all of my presentation. Thank you so much. Do you have any question or comment? Oh, welcome. Yeah. Okay.
I know you are rolling out 5G.
Mm.
How much of the 5G?
Mostly 5G IPv6 in Vietnam. They also connect, can provide 5G with IPv6 because they use the same infrastructure with 4G. However, it's not officially 5G subscriber infrastructure in Vietnam because they're waiting for something. I don't believe that. Yeah, we also in. Yeah, right.
Everybody, all the telco roll out 5G, but they non-standalone. Because then they claim 5G and you don't see the power of IPv6.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nava.
Thank you, Ms. Ohan. Moving on, our next speaker is the chair of the IPv6 Working Group of the Asia Pacific Advanced Network, APAN, Dr. Navanithan Arjuman, better known as Dr. Nava. He is currently an expert at the International Telecommunication Union, a United Nations agency. He is the global coordinator for Global IPv6 Forum Education Logo Program and secretary of IPv6 Forum Malaysia. He is also a lecturer at MMU and MUST University. Dr. Nava.
Okay, thank you, Ali. Okay, first of all, thank you for VNIC to host us. Okay, thanks, Prof. Suraj invited, and thanks everyone here. I see Paul here, everyone, Krishna. First time seeing Shai talking on the phone when I was met. Anyway, okay, right. Today my title. That's why I asked that question on, because now we are doing a lot of training in 5G in Malaysia and everywhere. So everybody claims 5G, but what we are saying is 5G is the driver IPv6 driver for 5G. So that is my focus. Okay. So now the joke is I'm talking about 5G, but everybody is talking about 6G. All right. So I'm not sure how far in even 5G we are not up to that. As far as IPv6 also, we've been talking about IPv6 for last 25 years. And now only like we got India, we got China, and of course Malaysia, we are trying to catch up. Vietnam is a good example of moving IPv6. I've been coming to Vietnam very long, been training on IPv6, and they've done very far, very good. So here the future, 6G or 5G, we are talking about IPv6 is the key driver. So you can see nothing much to share with you. Everything we're now going on virtualization, slicing and so on. So this is the future, right? So you can see so much of that. Then what 5G offer? Of course, I should talk about 6G, but 5G, I think something you will be heard. The first part of it, 100 times better in terms of speed. Availability, 99.999. It's a bit technical, I tell you. We want to protect ourselves. We just put the 0.0001%. How far we achieved that? Of course, on the papers, not on the real environment, but we see that, but it's going there, all right? Now, 100% coverage, better coverage, reduction of network energy, 90%. Energy, of course, dealing with the battery and all this related stuff when it comes to 5G. Because one thing great about 5G, we are talking about Internet of Things. So Internet of Things, a lot of devices, you need a lot of IP, then we want public IP addresses. So that is the basic of it. And we don't believe in IPv6. When we were taught, first time when I exposed, like Professor Raj, we say, oh, we don't want private IP. All right? Then we went back on our thing, say, we do have private IP in IPv6. All right? So a little bit contradicting, like the IPsec. I don't ask the question, but anyway, IPsec, we said initially mandatory. Now we have said it's optional. So we are going that. Oops, sorry. It's gone back. Okay. A little bit technology. Okay. So we're looking into 10 years battery life. Of course, this is IoT comes in. 100 times number of connected devices per unit compared to 4G. So 1,000 times bandwidth per unit area. 1 millisecond latency, very important. Because today, security, I know just now Krishna was sharing about security. Normally I ask questions a lot. But today I keep quiet because 15 minutes, I don't want to ask too much of question. Okay, so 1 millisecond delay, that what we are looking at more real time, automated cars. Now we're talking about AI is coming in big way, right? So you can see now everywhere people are talking about, this morning also we talk about AI. So AI is taking away, and for real implementation, 1 millisecond definitely required, because otherwise we will have problems in terms of accidents and so on, especially unmanned vehicles. So these are the 8 specifications that actually make IPv6, 5G is the current, but now people already start talking 6G. So these are the areas that we cover, from healthcare, 5G transforming healthcare now. Again, artificial intelligence with 5G, we are talking about IoT, AR, VR, this is coming in 5G, transportations, okay, leveraging IoT for fleet. So public sector also using 5G, oil and gas, and industrial IoT, we coming in industrial 4.0, even Japan, people 5.0. So everything is pointing towards requiring, adapting more devices coming online. So there's then energy and utility. So this graph that shows that nothing internet doesn't touch. Right, today internet touch all the industry across the verticals. So nothing goes without internet. So we are now talking about connecting quite a number of people. So one thing great about when we want to support 5G and IPv6, 5G supports IoT, big way, and we're talking about massive IPv6 devices. And IPv4, of course, I still see in my university, my lecturers still teach IPv4. And I've been telling them, okay, you should go to IPv6 by native 2025. I mean, that's the US on the government side. I think what we are talking about is we have to move to forget about IPv4 and move on with IPv6. Of course, people still make money from IPv4. Today, a lot of applications are using IPv4, and you have to pay for the IP address, right? So it's become a commodity. You know, as you know, APNIC run out, but now IPv4 is a commodity. Are you still selling something in the backside? No, isn't it? In the back end, back lane? Selling? No, no. Indirectly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I see now quite a number of organization is promoting selling IPv4. Because it used to be a structure when you buy IPv4, it comes together. Now we're promoting IPv6. Like yesterday, yesterday is World IPv6 Day, right? I think that's good aligned with what we are doing. So now AWS announced, I know recently they announced, if you go IPv4, you have to pay more. IPv6, it's the lowest price. So looks like IPv6 has to move on. All right. So here to stay. Like I just had this afternoon, this morning, had a good chat with Shai. We're talking about how the generation is going in terms of IPv6, right? So we have to move on. So everything is IPv6 drive 5G or 6G. I don't know whether next version of IP will be available. I don't know, ITF is talking about it. I don't know, Prof, probably you wanted to share some light. We are stuck with IPv6, probably next is IPv10 or whatever we are talking about. So what is brings, okay? So in terms of IPv6, new architecture, flexible routing, a lot of advantages in terms of connected device, fast response to infrastructure needed. On top of it, IPv6 securely large IP address. I mean, that is the big thing, all right? That's the big thing that we talk about. Then the most important now, we are talking about QoS. When it comes to 5G, IPv6 quality of service. That's why the SRv6 come in, iFeed come in. Today, what we want, not only the performance, but we need security. So this all comes together. Segment routing is a big thing. Now within IPv6 forum, education logo program, we are thinking of offering enhanced IPv6 courses. And capacity building has been the forefront of IPv6 with Dedicate. And you're looking at like URLCC with ultra low latency communications. 5G offer that as a main criteria, but that's its drive with IPv6. Without IPv6, you can't offer that. Okay, talking about quality of service. Specific link in terms of not selected operation that not possible with the standard routing protocol. Segment routing run natively on MPLS or IPv6. Okay, so that is the part. All right. 5G and IPv6, what the main driver possible is to address shortage for address harmonization in 5G. Okay, that's going to be there until the next IP version that we were talking about. And we are looking at network slicing. Specific network might be placed depending on the use case, okay? On the cell side, for example, you see cases, some centrally provide centralized service for all network segments. So now we come out with the word called harmonization. And just now, everything harmonized, sustainable, harmonized. And this is the buzzword, you know. We are not talking about, you know, this part of the SDG goals, you know, harmonized, sustainable, so on. So we're looking at 5G concept of a freedom of gradually evolve 5G network services without need of usual IP hacks like dedicated to backbones on VPN per network. From early deployment aspect, IPv6 is seen a mandatory for specific 5G traffic. I think we need to make mandatory. Then people start using 5G with IPv6. All right. So that's one good plan. Because in initial stage of the RFCs, we are talking about 5G control plan and user plane must use IPv6. That was the initial requirement. So as what we said, so it is up to us now. So a management plan, IPsec development initially early phase, not seen a mandatory, but optional is available. So this is something what we want to do, make the network right to 5G. Now, as well, now we are talking most about dual stack, mixed networks still. So still, I still see in the industry people still sticking with IPv4. Even though we have a lot of disadvantages, it's a dawn technology we are talking about, but I still see, that's why we still have people buying IP address. You know, IP address is on sale. Even though regulatory, I mean, it's available. And this is one issue that we talk about, I mean, in terms of how IP, the policy behind it, the governance behind the IP. So we are dual stack scenario occur during early deployment of phase must support 5G network. So again, we use global unicast address. So the objective of IPv6, we do not want to encourage private IP. We are looking at global IP because every IP will be available on the internet. So easy communication. Then it will allow operator to include new network segment in future and run standard services on the platforms. So of course, the ideal solution to introduce IPv4 dual stack initially is on 4G, and initially on 4G, and now IPv6 also on 5G network. Now, as I asked that question to On, you know, like similarly, a lot of operators everywhere, they're still running on IPv4, 5G network and IPv4. So that defeats the purpose. And it's also defeat the purpose of what 5G can offer. Because with IPv4, we could not achieve what 5G offers in terms of technical capacity. So this is one case study. You can look at how hospitals, systems. This is in healthcare. Healthcare is the big industry now we are talking about. So we are using smart health monitoring systems. So everything runs on 5G network. But the most important part which I want to show you is, sorry, backward. Okay, very insensitive technology. Okay, the plane, you see the health service layer, 5G IPv6 network, and we're looking at the communication layer. All here that's presented are based on IPv6 and 5G communication. So in nutshell, what we are trying to say, the future that lies on IPv6, and of course we are now moving 5G, 6G, but without IPv6, full implementation of IPv6 I'm talking about. So what we are now talking about, as I mentioned to you, with IPv6, we could achieve the quality of service that we want, because which we couldn't do it via the IPv4, because quality of service is the biggest challenge, especially today. Everyone's speed, of course, security is a bigger area that we need to concern. So with IPv6, with SRv6, as well IFEED and so on, we could actually achieve the agenda of security and performance in one stone, killing two birds. You know, that's the main thing. So we need to encourage, push everyone to move that. As far as the government is concerned, my strong word to everyone is, please make it as mandatory. If you allow what we have done, of course, consensus, what we have allowed, what we have done for IPv4 transition to IPv6, it took 25 years, yet we still see people are operating in IPv4. So we need to have a much, policy-related encouragement so everybody to move to 5G or 6G with IPv6. So that is my say word on today's afternoon. Thank you very much for listening to me. Is there any questions you want to ask? Is there anything you want to ask? No. No, I mean, thank you once again. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Nava. Next, we would like to invite Dr. Satya N. Gupta, Secretary General, ITU APT Foundation of India. He is the chairman of Bharat IPv6 Forum and also the founder of Blockchain for Productivity Forum. He is an international expert in NGN technologies, regulations, interconnection, and broadband policy. Dr. Satya.
Thank you, Wally. Good afternoon, everyone. It's indeed a great pleasure and honor to be here on invitation of our friend Professor Suresh, and that has brought me the opportunity also to meet our old friends to whom we were disconnected during COVID waves 5 years, Chine, Paul, and Sunny and Dr. Nava, of course, and few more of you, and I got new friends also here. And my job, of course, has been made very easy. In fact, in next 15 minutes, I will not be talking anything about IPv6 because everything have been talked about that. And the better persons, better experts than me, I will take from where Shine mentioned about the project Yeti of Europe, where he mentioned about one world, one internet, one protocol. So from there, I want to bring it further actually. And here I want to make use of a combination of various technologies. Of course, IPv6 is one of them. And in addition to IPv6, blockchain actually, as Valley mentioned, I wear the blockchain hat also now. And then IoT, what Professor Nava has been mentioning, AI and data space. The data space is a new technology. The brand ambassador of that for Asia Pacific. Software apps, like in India, we have India Stack, Aadhaar, UPI, all that. But according to me, digital infrastructure is not only the software alone. Actually, it also needs physical infrastructure, actually, and both the combination, and that is why I call it a phygital, actually, instead of digital. So we will not go more in detail of that. I'll just skip because it is India specific for a different purpose. But the main purpose actually of achieving the goal of digital public good, which I'll be talking, is that we have to pool all fiber assets in a national transport grid under the supervision of National Fiber Authority. That is again from our India experience, which is of course backed by international best practices also. So some concepts have been used to achieve this objective of digital public infrastructure, and they are from our learning from the legacy technologies. One of them is functional separation. In functional separation, what they do is from a telco or from an operator network, logically they separate the underlying infrastructure, the physical infrastructure. The experiment was done 30 years back in UK, British Telecom, which was adopted by EU. Then it went even to Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, and now it has become a normal thing that the infrastructure, underlying infrastructure should be at least, if not physically, logically should be separated out, and so that its potential can be unlocked. And then the active sharing, this is about the sharing of resources, sharing of infrastructure, then indefeasible right of use, where they call connectivity as a service model, and blockchain cooperative. In blockchain, we call it DAO, the decentralized autonomous organization. That is like a cooperative, smart contracts. Those concepts are also taken from blockchain. Tokenization. And tokenization is one, this is the tokenization of assets. It is different than the Bitcoin, of course. It is a token, and tokenization of the physical assets, not only just digital assets. And that is where IPv6 play important role like IoT, because if everything have to be tokenized and even micro tokenization, so you will need billions and trillions of IP addresses. That is where IPv6 comes. And then these data spaces, what I was mentioning. So all these things put together, if we use, that is where we can bring what we call a digital public good. And this is the functional separation. I'll not be spending much time. Active sharing, not much time can be spent on this. blockchain, of course, for this audience, I think you don't need to know what is blockchain actually. Some places they ask, what is blockchain? So I like to skip this. Blockchain is a digital infrastructure where a distributed digital ledger is maintained and shared by a network of computers or nodes. Actually, it is a type of internet. It is called internet of value. So that is why we want to make use of it actually. It's a infrastructure, it's a internet of thing you call for M2M. So this blockchain is called internet of value, and it has an ecosystem. The blockchain is not just one technology, neither it is a new technology. Actually, 5 underlying technologies which blockchain has exploited were there much before, some of them much before the internet itself actually. Cryptography, the public-private key, the hashing functions, the distributed database, the decentralized processing, the consensus algorithms, all these have been there, but they have been put together to achieve a target, and target is decentralization and trust building actually. And this same thing is developed because it is an internet, so I've tried to put the blockchain also in these layers, not 7 layers of OSI, but 5 of them actually. And the functions, and first layer, the underlying layer here is the public internet itself actually, what we do in the internet, and on top of that, the blockchain layers come, and that is where the IPv6 also comes. What is happening? Yeah, smart contract also, this is another killer application of blockchain actually, the smart contract, which is automation of all your contracts through coding and using IT and the power of decentralization. So each one, and blockchain cooperative, as I mentioned, DAO in blockchain it is called, and now this one is the IPv6 actually. And these have been covered, so I will not spend any time on these things. Everything of IPv6 is covered very nicely by our Krishna and Professor Nava, actually. So the cryptographic part of this is now coming on the addressing side in the form of CGA. The CGA is cryptographically generated addresses, where like you do in the NAT, you reuse an address, all that. Same way, by using cryptography, you can again multiply the usage of that address and keep them what is called anonymous actually. So these are the, now I should go, why it is, yeah, this thing is already known, IPv6. Not working? Yeah, so this is the future actually, blockchain, AI, IoT, IPv6. What Professor Nava was also mentioning, he mentioned about 5G also. Now in place of 5G, the future is 6G. So it is not coincidence that everything is 6. Like we have Wi-Fi 6, IPv6 is there, 6G is there. So everything will be, future will be everything 6 actually. And the cross section of all these technologies is what will be the future of technology. It is also called Web 3 actually. The Web 3 takes advantage of all the technologies which we are mentioning, the blockchain, the internet of value, internet of things, machine-to-machine communication, and IPv6. And the new name given to Web 3 is internet of wealth. This they are taking from internet of value actually. Web 3 will also be internet type thing and internet of wealth. And data space, I'll skip actually quickly without Shine means staring on me because it is his subject. So I'll just skip all these things, and time also does not permit. Yeah, this is about, so this is one concept where I want to bring this. We have used, exploited in India in a big way. That is about the financing of a big infrastructure project, digital infrastructure project, and that is called INVIT, Investment Trust. So there are sponsor, trustee, investors, investment manager, and it is a very, very efficient concept of raising funds through crowdsourcing. for any big project actually, whether it is digital or any physical or internet. So that is the concept we are using in India, and it has a different name, but I will be now coming, and this is what I was mentioning about this technology. Everyone knows about Web 1, which was only read only. That is where our friend Dr. Tim Lee started in 90s. It was read only, and then the Web 2 came, where it was read and write, and where we are there, interactive. But even that is not enough. Now we are talking about Web 3 actually, and Web 3 will be read, write, own. So it is not only reading, write, creating your content and giving ownership to someone else. So you will be owning a decentralized, democratized, intermediary less. That is what blockchain brings to the table, decentralization. So it will be peer-to-peer kind of thing. That is why it is called Internet of Owned Wealth. And now I'm coming to my main vision of what I was trying to say, phygital public good actually. Phygital public good is moving from digital public infrastructure. And what you mean by public good, I think everyone knows. These are also known as commons. Commons means these are like natural resources, air, water, sunlight, the space, open sky, everything is a public good. And what is the phygital public good? Phygital public good is, it is not natural. It is basically, let us say, processed kind of natural resources. And but like a natural public good is available on a non-discriminatory manner, almost free to anybody, anywhere. That is what is the future of digital public goods. And internet can do the job like lot of talks about IPv6 to be given free. Here actually everything has to be given free. IPv6 is just one thing. Then only it becomes a public good. Public good means it is available to everyone in a non-discriminatory manner and free of cost. That is a great vision of UN also, and like you are talking about one world, one sun, one family, one network, something like that. So that is what is required. Of course, it is easier said than done. You can agree. A lot of work is required to be done. Not only just pooling of resources. A lot of regulatory intervention is required. In fact, all the stakeholders, all the civil societies, all the forums, councils have to collaborate actually together to achieve this objective. So that is where I thought I live. So I'm very sorry to not to discuss about IPv6, which you would have expected. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Satya. Now it's time for a short tea break. So we'll adjourn for refreshments and we'll come back at 3:45. Thank you. I'll bring my laptop. It's only one presentation have to be replaced.
Yes, come. You want to ask something? Okay.
We'll be presenting online. So how does it work? Do we have?
How do we show on the screen?
Okay, so will we share a presentation or we will share it?
He will share.
He will share it.
Yes, right. It's better to show you the
Yeah,
presentation himself.
because I will mention it through the mic so you can share it.
Rồi. Anh ơi, đang nữa cái bài trình bày online thì anh khách này đây chia sẻ cái màn hình cái này. Yeah, I need to see this.
Okay, well, we'll go. No, I said I want to change the presentation, which is at instead of here. Can you just change it in the photo? Everything is done. Only one file should be changed. The order is all there.
share lên rồi em share cùng luôn.
We would like to request Mr. Robin, Vice Chair of APAC IPv6 Council, and also the founder of SRv6 and IPv6 Plus, and Huawei Chief IP Protocol Expert. He has 15 plus years of experience in research and development work in MPLS and SDN controller as a system architect. And he is connected with us remotely to present his address titled Latest Progress of IPv6 Enhanced Innovation and Standard. Mr. Robin?
Okay, thanks, Vale. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I also request you to share your slides because it will be easier for you to navigate.
Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, Mr. Robin.
Okay.
Now, yeah, okay.
Now it's okay. Yeah. It's
Yes,
okay.
we can see now.
Okay. Okay. Shall I start?
Yes, Mr. Robin.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So this is Zhenbin. My English name is Robin. It's unfortunate I cannot join the meeting in person. I have to do the presentation remotely. Hope to next chance I can meet you everyone. Okay, today my presentation is the latest progress of IPv6 enhanced.
Mr. Robin, can you be a little more louder?
Okay.
If you don't mind. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Today my presentation is the latest progress of the IPv6 enhanced innovations and standards. Okay. So in fact, in the past 50 years, so the IP had this long history for the evolution. So the 1990s, the most important application is the internet applications, drive the IPv4 technologies developed. So then the following is 20 years. So that's the traditional telecommunication networks is changed to IP-based networks. MPRs plays an important role. So now we face the very important chance from the 5G and the cloud. So we believe that IPv6 enhanced plays an important role for the 5G and the cloud applications. In order to understand the application requirement, we summarize one word. 5G changes the attributes of connections and the cloud changes their scope. Just because 5G introduced these new services, which have strict SLA requirement on the IP connections. So it's necessary to introduce new extensions in the data plane. So IPv6 extension header mechanism can play an important role for this requirement. The second one, cloud changes their scope. Just because of cloud, so the IP connections will be very flexible. So that's based on the IP to set up the IP connections will be very easy comparing with the traditionally MPLS. The second one, I think the most important is the breakthrough of the network hardware, because the IPv6 is a header that's 30 years ago, there's already has such a mechanism, but there's not much use in the past 30 years. But just because of the breakthrough of the network hardware and the programming chipset capabilities, so now IPv6 header can be used. So this combines the application requirement and this the technology's maturity so that IPv6 extension can be used for the new network services. So in order to help people to understand what's the IPv6 enhanced and what's the new services brought by the IPv6 enhanced, we have a simple analogy between the IPv6 enhanced and the driving experience. 30 years ago, you know that there's no the Google Map, there's no navigator. So the driving is just based on the road signs, hop by hop to the destination. So this is similar like the traditional IP. So that is the quality is, and also the experience is very hard to be guaranteed. But now we have this better driving experience because we have the navigator so that we can design the path to indicate to traverse specific places. So that's the similar as SRv6. It can introduce such capability for the IP traffic. The second important tools for the driving experience is dashboard camera. Because of the dashboard camera, so we can trace the path of our driving so that when accident happens, it's very easy to locate the responsibility of the drivers involved. So that's we can use that's the on-path telemetry so that implement a search capability for the IP traffic. A third important one is a dedicated lane. 30 years ago, because the road is very narrow, it's necessary to have the dedicated lane. But you know now that the road is very broad, so there's the dedicated lanes for the different services. So now that's even encounter traffic jam. So for the bus, for the public service, it can enter into the dedicated lane, so guarantee the experience. So similarly, so as this the network slicing is likely to introduce a dedicated lane for the IP traffic. So when the IP traffic is forwarded, so the experience can be guaranteed with the isolated resource. So we think that's just like the driving experience improvement. IPv6 introduced the new extensions to install this capability for the traditional IP traffic, so can improve the experience for this IP traffic. Okay, I will not introduce the details of the technicals. Here we can see the SRv6. It can install the path. That's like the segment list to specify each node and the link traversed by the path to guarantee the experience. So that's just like the navigator to indicate the places to be traversed for the path. Okay, so the SRv6, the big vision to implement the end-to-end network unified forwarding process, and also to integrate network domains. Okay. And for the SRv6, the most important work for the past several years, the most important work is SRv6 compression, because many people there's a consensus on the capability of SRv6 and its advantage, but there's also challenge of the packet header for the SRv6. So that's in order to solve this challenge, SRv6 compression technologies are introduced since the 2019. At that time, there are several solutions. After 2 years work, these solutions are converged. So that's the converged solution is called compressed SAID. So now that's the standards is mature. So now that's is in the working group last call. It's expected to be published soon as the IETF RC. In fact, because there's the different scenarios, because you know that's the different operators, enterprise, they may have the different IPv6 address resource. So there's the different SRv6 compression flavors for choose. So there's the third flavor, there are 3 flavors for SRv6 compressed solutions. So now that we have this the ebook for reference. If you have interest, please feel free to download. And now that we can see that SRv6, there the standard is very mature. All the SRv6 basic functionality, there already has the formal RC. And also we can see that there's the almost all mainstream vendors implement SRv6. So that's the SRv6 industry is become very mature. And also that's all over the world because of the industry is mature. The deployment of SRv6 is accelerating. So by the end of last year, there's already more than 400 deployment all over the world, not only for operators, but also for the enterprise network backbone networks. That is after the SRv6. So that is the other most important innovations for IPv6 extensions. The first one is network slicing. From here, we can see that we need to introduce a slice ID in the data plane to indicate the resource for the specific slice. So IPv6 internet header can be used to encapsulate the slice ID information. So that's when forward this the IP packet, it first to depend on destination address to find the outgoing interface, then take use of the slice ID to indicate the resource on the outgoing interface to guarantee the forwarding, so that it can achieve this the better forwarding experience. Because of network slicing, so that it can be used for the 2B services for the operators, because take use of network slicing technologies in a single the physical network, there can be multiple virtual networks for the different services according to their different service requirement. So that's this can be is very cost effective. That means based on the one physical network can implement multiple virtual network to guarantee the services and the resource for the different customers and the applications. So that's now that's is all over the world. There's already has more than 110 deployment. So that is used for the different usage. So that's I will not introduce the details. So another very important work for IPv6 enhanced is in situ flow information telemetry. Just like I mentioned before, that is like to introduce a dashboard camera for the IP packet. So when this failure happens on the degradation of user experience happens, it's easy to locate this the failure and the root cause for this failure or the downgradation. Okay, so this is the take use of the IPv6 Ethernet header to record the OEM information along the real traffic, so it can achieve this purpose. Just because of this the IFAT, so that it can achieve this high precision, and for the real services, you implement the service monitoring, and also can be used for the various scenarios, simplify the network operation and the maintenance. So now that's the IFAT is also deployed all over world. So now there's also more than this 150 deployments. So that's can implement and be used to reduce OPEX for the IP networks. So the latest innovations for the IPv6 enhanced is to take use of the IPv6 extension to integrate application and the network. So that's the application and take use of this the IPv6 extension header to encapsulate application information or the user information and convey this information to the network. So the network can take use of such information for granularity services. And so the network can achieve better services for such application. Okay. So this is the APN. This is the deployment in the China bank network. From here, we can see that is APN6 is used for the video conference. When the video conference, the terminal send the packet. So in the IPv6 packet, so the application ID for the video conference can be encapsulated in the extension header. So this packet is sent from the terminal to the network. When the network receives this the IPv6 packet, it can recognize the application ID for the video conference, steer this traffic to the dedicated network slice to guarantee the services, and also take use of the IFAT to monitoring this the quality of this the video conference. So that's take use of the APN6. It can implement the end-to-end the video conference experience guarantee. So this we can say that we also can say that IPv6 extension is adopted to integrate the application and the network and achieve this the better services purpose. Okay, so here this is a summary of the IPv6 Ethernet header usage. So that's in the past 7 years, we can see that the new services are introduced, taking use of the IPv6 extensions. So that IPv6 Ethernet header can be used, can be well adopted, and is becoming a very strong tools to enhance the value of IPv6. This is the glass of the IPv6 enhanced standard layout. From here, we can see that the different phases for the phase 1. So the SRv6, we can see that the standards is very mature. That is almost all the functionalities become the RFC. For the second phase, is develop these new services for the 5G and the cloud. The most important, including the slicing and the IFAT, etc. So now we can say that the standards is almost stable, and also that is still some this remaining this control plane work to be done. And for the phase 3, the most important one is the APN6 that to integrate the application as the network. There's already have this the different this the draft. So now that's the standardization is in progressing. And also that's in the IETF because because of technical maturity of SRv6. Now that's the operators and enterprise networks has more requirement on the SRv6 deployment and operation in order to satisfy this requirement. So that's the in the IETF last year, November. So there's the SRv6 operation set meetings, so that the operators from such as the Bell Canada, Telefonica, Swisscom, China Mobile, etc., and they share the SRv6 deployment experience. So this year, so that's in March, Australia, the IETF, so that's these operators and enterprise, they try to set up the SRv6 operation working group. That means not only to share experience, but they also have the charter for the working group and propose the deliverables for such experience. For example, how to design IPv6 address for the SRv6 networks, etc. Okay. So, and also in order to help the industry to learn latest the progress of IPv6 enhanced technologies, so that we also led the team to publish the books such as the SRv6 network programming, network solution, network deployment, and also that's the on-pass telemetry. Okay, so that's all. Okay, thanks. Okay, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Robin. I think we do not have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Robin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Moving on, our next speaker is the Director General of Asia Pacific Network Information Center, EPNIC, Mr. Paul Wilson. He has more than 30 years involvement with the internet, including 25 years of experience as the Director General of EPNIC. As part of this role, he represents the activities and interests of the Asia Pacific internet community in local and global forums related to the development and management of the internet. Mr. Paul. Sure, please.
You've got the mic at the controller?
Sure.
Yeah. Sure, thank you. Thanks, Vali. Is it coming? Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone. I was not entirely sure what to expect at this meeting and whether or not we'd be entirely with friends and experts here or with a wider audience. And this presentation is very much designed for a wider audience, and it probably doesn't contain anything that you don't already know as quite experienced experts in IPv6. You know, I'm not a deep techie myself, especially not these days, so I don't have very much along those lines. But I think it might be useful to make this a kind of a meta presentation, like a presentation about the presentation and how we can sell the IPv6 message to the community that we want to reach. Because I think everyone here is dedicated to promoting IPv6 and seeing the IPv6 transition through to its completion, so that we can finally declare that the internet is IPv6 only, right? That's going to happen one day, right? To get there, though, we still need to convince half of the world, and there are still people who think that won't happen. That you know, even though we've hit 50% penetration, more or less, that the last 50%, even if we get a proportion of it, that we might never get 100% of the last 50, meaning that IPv4 could be with us forever. And I think everyone here knows that that's not really what we're trying to do. It's not the optimal solution, and we really need to keep promoting IPv6 and keep supporting and driving towards the completion of the transition. And I have a sense of some urgency with this, because coming from the RAR, coming from APNIC, I'm well aware, and I'm sure our VNIC friends are as well, and others, that the IPv4 address space is still being consumed. It's still being used and deployed. People are actually building networks and trying to get more IPv4, and it's really not a good situation. The v4 address space is going to become more and more fragmented, more difficult to use and more problematic if we keep squeezing more devices into the limited amount of space. And there's also the factor of the IPv4 market. So at the moment, there's some quite chaotic behavior in the V4 market. You couldn't call it a black market or a white market or a grey market. It's everything together. And there are people who are now quite determined to monetize IPv4 address space as much as they can, without any commitment or interest in the usability of that space or the health of the internet, which is being addressed by that space. And I really think what we might have is a situation, what we're leading to is a situation with many different sort of competing IP address registries or pseudo registries, without an interest in registration at all, for instance, without an interest in making sure that space is being used and that the holder of the address space can be reachable, for instance, through whois. And probably with no interest in supporting the good deployment of RPKI and other technologies around IPv4 space. So I think the longer that this goes on, the internet's going to keep growing, right? We cannot stop adding devices to the internet, but the longer it keeps going on, the more we have a sort of chaotic situation, which is not very good for anyone. And I just think it's incumbent on us to really try and mount the case for IPv6 at a time when V6 is proven to be absolutely successful and viable, and there can no longer be any doubt about V6 as a viable technology, as there was, say, 10 years ago, because it's not so long ago that people were saying maybe V6 was going to die and not reach its critical mass. Suresh would remember that we've been talking about this for 20 years. And after 10 years of talking about it, people started to doubt. But now in the last 10 years, things are looking much better, but at the same time, there's lots of other things happening. So I really think what we need to do is develop the messaging and really push it as hard as we can to try and like I say, to complete the transition. So there's a whole lot of slides here that I've used in different places. Some of them quite old, so they've been used over the years. And I think it's really quite important for us to understand what the best messages are and how to most effectively convince the people who need to know about V6 that they can actually use it. So I use this gravestone slide now showing V4 as having been born in 1983, because that's when it was actually declared as the protocol for the internet. It has not yet passed away, but we might sort of say maybe it will in 2025 or 2030 or 2033, who knows. But in any case, it's a long illness, right? V4 has been in a very unhealthy state for quite some time already. And so we can illustrate that by looking at the exhaustion of the space, the fact that there's very little left. And also the second slide here, unfortunately, very difficult to see that. You could see more of it on the screen there, but it's one of these slides showing the flow of of IPv4 addresses between the regions of the Asia Pacific. We can actually produce these charts that show the volume of address transfers which are happening between countries, between regions globally or regionally. And what they're meant to show is that it's really quite chaotic, that you've got address space being passed around in quite large numbers chaotically around the world. And this only shows what's registered. What we also know is that there's black market activities where a lot of transfers are happening that aren't even able to be tracked, and that's the other part of this problem. So, the idea is that V4 is really in a quite a chaotic state at the moment, and it's on life support. So, it was the free pool expired in 2011, a long time ago now, and the RARs all expired between 2012 and 2017 in terms of their supply. APNIC does have a remaining supply because we reclaimed a lot. Carla's department last year reclaimed a lot of addresses, and we've got a few million addresses available for ongoing allocation, but that doesn't help the rest of the world. So we're delaying the inevitable exhaustion of V4 by continuing to use NAT and CGNAT, and by this trading process. And something that's, the trading is quite active, but something that many people don't realise is the price is quite astronomical. and that if you compare the price of purchased IPv4 address space or leased IPv4 with the standard registration cost that has applied at RARs across the board, it really is 10 to 1,000 times as much. I mean, a large ISP at APNIC, the registration charges that they pay are a fraction of a cent per year per address, and yet the actual leasing price for an address is $10, $15. Amazon is charging $40 a year per address, and so 1,000 times is actually an underestimate on that basis. So there's a lot of money involved. This is kind of an old analogy where I'm starting to show people some of the complexity of continuing with IPv4, right? And people ask, how does a NAT work? Well, a NAT works exactly like an old telephone exchange. You had private phone lines inside an office. You had a public phone network, and to reach the private lines, you had to go through this exchange. And it's actually what it allowed was outgoing calls to the public network, okay, but incoming calls, problematic. You had to go through a protocol, right, to reach. And that's really exactly how a NAT works. You've got public addresses and private addresses, and it adds some extra protocol. You can't just easily cross that divide without the extra cost of extra protocol. Okay, so that's the way of explaining network address translation. But then, of course, the point about network address translation at that level is to add some extra delay, some latency. Unfortunately, the internet cloud isn't showing very well up there, but it's there. But the thing that we're seeing these days is carrier grade NAT, right? So the ISPs can't even allocate the public address anymore to the customer. They're allocating a private address, so there's 2 levels of NAT. There's been quite a bit of work that has gone in over the years. And some of this is old, so I think something that's would be quite useful would be to have some more contemporary information. But I found really, Suresh, you might know some more recent studies, but it seems that 10 years ago there was quite a lot of work that was done on the costs of NAT and all sorts of justification for IPv6 at quite a detailed level, but it's kind of hard to find these days. So the gigabyte per user per month as the NAT logging cost is about 10 years old as an estimate. There's no reason to think that it's got any lower though, because users are doing more and there's more parallel sessions and more. So that could be many gigabytes per month as the logging cost. Right. Well, I hope so. I hope so. But we're still looking at 45%, 55% of the internet that's not yet there. So, and we're looking at people still paying a lot for V4. So, I mean, we need to look at at where those costs are being incurred and make sure that people aren't wasting their money on this. Mm-hmm. Do you mean what's going up? The yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? This is being propelled by wonderful AWS and Amazon, Amazon AWS and Google and the other people who are now beginning to charge for IPv4 addresses.
Yeah.
So someone is charging you, like you said, 40, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other option he does give you is, it is like give you V6 for free.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
If you figure you can work with V6, why not?
We continually point that out, and we continually have people saying we need more IPv4 addresses. We need more IPv4. So, this is where we're at. So I hope you're right. And I think looking at the charts, there's a linear growth at the moment that looks like it will take quite a few more years. But if it can accelerate, like you say, go exponential, that'd be great. Because the costs add up, and so the idea there, for what it's worth, is that it really costs a lot to maintain V4, and it gives you a disadvantage as well. So it's obvious. So there's the analogy. I find the best analogy for the size of V6 is the one with the astronomical numbers. So in terms of the number of stars in the observable universe, it's you could address them with IPv4, one address per star. That's all with IPv4, but with IPv6, I mean, you could put an internet on every one of those stars and still have a lot more address space to spare. Now, the routing system is the other thing that starts to be interesting in terms of latency, because IPv4 has got 1 million routes more or less in the routing tables these days. IPv6 at sort of half the size of the network has only got 200,000, and that makes a big difference to the complexity of routing and also to the number of hops in the average AS path length. So the average number of hops, if you take out all the prepending and all the manipulation, the average number is between 3 and 4, and V6 is consistently half a hop less on average. And if you imagine a hop can be anything from 5 milliseconds to 50 milliseconds or even longer, then you're adding milliseconds, more and more milliseconds. And these days, I mean, another interesting thing is to look at the impact of that latency, because of course you don't notice it if you're on an app or if you're on the web, but gamers notice it. And so gamers, the kids looking for ISPs to do gaming are looking for V6 ISPs. And that's because the latency is generally better. And there's also, you could talk about stock trading companies and all these, even the sort of argument for 5G being low latency. If you're looking at remote surgery, etc., then those sorts of applications, the latency is very important. And so IPv6 is potentially critical there as well. Now, this unfortunately is not showing well, but if you see on the screen there is a map there. APNIC Labs is doing comprehensive measurement of average latency in different countries of the world between V4 and V6. It's highly variable. Some of them are huge differences, which are kind of probably not even worth looking at. But across the USA, the average benefit from IPv6 is 3.7 milliseconds, and that's based on millions of measurements. 4.3 milliseconds in Canada. In Brazil, it's actually 5.5 milliseconds worse on average to use IPv6. And so it can be worse on average, but if you want to understand more, you actually have to look down into the autonomous systems, the actual ISPs that are contributing to this, because sometimes there can be a very negative result from one large ISP. So we really do have some good data. I said before, there's not that much work going on studies, but there's still a lot of data collection going on. Now, this is coming to the price of V4. It did peak at about $60 US per address post-COVID, but it's actually come back down to between $30 and $40 an address. Hopefully it keeps going down, because that's a really good sign for the demand for V4. And that's where it's not like Bitcoin, right, Suresh, except being a bad investment. The other good news here, 43% of Asia is IPv6 capable. Vietnam, 60% of IPv6, you know that very well, and you are in number 7, in fact, place number 7 according to APNIC Labs in the world, which is fantastic. Google is, 45% of traffic on V6? And again, APNIC Labs has got the national stats there. Again, these are all averages across the country, and in a way it's not very meaningful, because the average is made up of very different behaviour from different ISPs, and so the average can be driven very much by one large ISP in a fairly centralised economy, while a lot of others still don't do IPv6 at all. And so we've got to look at a breakdown of what's actually happening in individual economies. Great progress in Asia in the last 10 years. So we went from having 3 economies in the top 20 to having 9, I think, 8 of them there at the moment, and Vietnam in number 7. And there's other work that's been done. Here's about IPv6 advantages. Here's something from Akamai about the scaling of their IPv6 services over 10 years from 2012 to 2022, 40,000 times as much traffic in 10 years, 1,000 times as many requests, 400 times as many addresses. That's some good data, a few years old. Now, when we talk about motivations, I probably don't need to go into these things, but I mean, we do need to be able to discuss the motivations. What's often said is that it's not so much the ISPs, and I think Suresh mentioned this, it's not so much the ISPs, but often the enterprises, the smaller networks and the enterprises, and they need to understand motivations, which have got to do with cost and competition and latency and so on. And also dispel the doubts, the doubts about whether or not there's a business risk or a security risk, because these things should be disproven by now. This is where if we drill down into each country and look at what the ASNs are contributing, that's quite an interesting competitive factor, and this is India, where in 2015 Jio started deploying V6 and they went very quickly to a high level of penetration. They were followed just in the following years by the other major ISPs in India, all of them together contributing to that thick green line, which has got the national deployment at something like 79%. But what we've seen in many cases is that one ISP will move and then others will as well. And I had this analysis in Malaysia, which was quite interesting, but also in Vietnam. That again, it shows that actually in Vietnam, the movement of the biggest ISPs happened in a space of about 3 years, and that gave you your 60%. There's still more to be done, but there's a long tail of smaller organisations that still need to do it. We can look at more case studies. This is where Akamai is providing CDN customers, all CDN customers with V6. They had a TV streaming station that said that they improved their throughput by 38% by moving to V6 and 67% at night time. So can't quite tell what the logic is behind that, but they were very clear about benefits. And enterprises, as I mentioned before, a company like Akamai knows very well about enterprises. They've got many customers. Something that is hidden in here is that a lot of enterprises in the internet world are either targeting to acquire or to be acquired, right? Everyone wants to acquire more or to be acquired by others. And the advantage of moving out of private v4 address space is that your company is more ready to acquire or to be acquired. The renumbering cost of moving from private space, which could clash with others, is quite high. And so if you're transitioning to V6 already, then you're increasing the value of your company from an acquisition point of view. And that's starting to become a selling point that companies like Akamai and also Amazon are starting to use. And Amazon has started charging for addresses, $42 per annum. That's a great incentive for IPv6, but maybe for some people it's $42 a year doesn't matter, and they'll keep spending it, but it's at least a factor. And there's some quotes there from Amazon people about how important it is for them. Latency. Now, I said before that latency varies a lot. Unfortunately, in Vietnam, your latency advantage is not there. On average, according to APNIC Labs, on average, V6 is 12.5 milliseconds slower. But please take a look into this, because, again, what you find is that there's one very large ISP that has, actually there's 3 ISPs with a disadvantage, and the disadvantages are 10 or 30 or 90 milliseconds. But the others are good. So your average is being dragged down by some poor performance. And that's something they should know about, because if their customers are getting 90% disadvantage from IPv6, then they will actually notice that. And the customers probably won't have any knowledge of why, right? They will be given an IPv6 address because the ISP is giving it to them. But they will find that their performance is not so good. 1/10 of a second is going to be noticeable. So that's where you can really start to drill down into these statistics and find more data. I always have always said we need to follow the leaders, but unfortunately over the years there have been a lot of leading countries and economies that have issued IPv6 mandates and then not followed through, right? I think China's had three mandates over the years. These days they're starting to be much more real though. So DoD, Department of Defense and Commerce in the US have got transitions to be completed by 2025, that is deployment of V6. China and Vietnam have got national deployments announced. The Czech Republic said that this is later, but they've said that their government services will be IPv6 only in 2032. So that's quite a commitment. And India, of course. So there's quite a bit of data there. We can go back to the benefits. The benefits of deploying IPv6 have got so much to do with the performance improvement and the ability to manage a network much more easily. That thing about mergers and acquisitions is quite important, that you don't have to worry about that if you're merging one V6 network with another one. It's very different from using private. And here's something else that I use quite a bit by way of analogy, and I'm interested in your feedback on this, because we often hear about IPv4 and IPv6 being incompatible, right? They say these things are incompatible and that's a problem. They're incompatible in the same way that a petrol vehicle is incompatible with an electric vehicle, right? And you can't put electricity in a petrol vehicle and expect it to work, okay? But they are perfectly compatible in that they drive on the same highway, right? These cars use the same roads and the cars operate the same way. They provide the same service. So you can jump into an electric car or a petrol car as a passenger or a driver, and you don't need to know the difference. That's really a good parallel. Well, this is exactly the point, because we're going to IPv6 and everything's going to be much better, but in the meantime we've got a transition, and we've got so we do have both protocols working, and we've even got some intermediate protocols of hybrid vehicles, right? And that's an attempt to do both, but I think everyone knows that a hybrid vehicle is the most complex and potentially problematic vehicle on the road, and they really do have a limited lifetime. And so I think it's a pretty neat analogy for sort of showing that there's compatibility and not, the roads don't know the difference, the drivers and passengers don't know the difference. But if you're maintaining a vehicle, you have to know what's under the hood, right? You have to know how it works and what's inside it. You need to be trained to use one or the other. So, the service providers, the people who are building the internet, they do need to know. And then there's this sort of final message about S-curve adoption, whether it's a video player, a radio, a TV. Over the years, technology gets adopted in an S-curve where it starts off slow and it finishes off slow, but in the middle you've got, as Suresh said, hopefully an accelerating growth. So whether we're talking about V6 or other technologies, but in this case V6, we do have this S-curve. Where are we on the S-curve? At the moment, we're somewhere in the middle. But so we're somewhere in the middle at the moment. It's quite nice. But how long will it take to do the rest? Because by percentage, we're not quite even in the middle. We're somewhere there, but we've got to keep moving. And so the question for everyone who's in these audiences is, where do you want to be? Do you want to be a laggard and wait for a whole lot of years and have a whole lot of expense and commercial disadvantage, or do you want to get moving? And so I think the answer should be obvious by the argument that's there. So. Look, I know none of this is new to anyone here, but I just think it's very useful to think about how we're selling the message and how we're trying to get this job done. I give an advertisement here for APNIC 58. That's our next conference, which is in Wellington in New Zealand, and we've got V6 being discussed there as usual with address policies and all the rest. So I lost track of time there completely. I don't know how long that was, probably exceeded the allocation. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Any questions?
Yeah, I know we have US says 2025, China says 2025. But what is the direction of market in India? What is the final date?
ICANN is not in charge of the transition in any sense. And, the regional internet address registry is part of the ICANN system, but very much the policy process and the implementation, the operations, all through the delegated through the RIRs to the community. So you might as well ask everyone when they plan to shift and average it out. ICANN is helpful in that what they have done at the DNS registry level is they're requiring the registries and contracted parties to have IPv6 readiness, at least on paper they require. And so, you know, there's a good level of adoption of V6 in the main registries, contracted registries within ICANN. Probably not so much all the very small ones that aren't in contract with. But, you know,
they don't have a full date.
No, I don't think they want to do that because I think everyone would say, well, it's not up to ICANN. ICANN can promote it, but to sort of try and require.
The issue why what you say, the customers they might not understand.
Exactly.
Do I have it? I have it in IPv4. We just get it because confusion will now. And one part we promote native IPv6. And the other end, they say, okay, can I still live with IPv4? So if there's no clear mandate from anybody, I mean, this is regulatory issue. Of course, down to the countries, it says down to the countries, but countries also need some sort of direction.
Yeah,
that's
right.
That's
Countries
don't
regulate.
Within RIR, within, I don't know what's the role of IANA and between this IANA and RIR. So the mandate must be say, okay, we have a help to community, let's understand. But otherwise, we are in the limbo. Should I be keep? Because some say, why should I spend? It's all down to money, migration, and all this. This is where some people ask me this question when I do the training. Can you tell me? I said, this is $1 million question. Give me the million, I'll try to find out. Right?
It'll be a long time before V6 disappears. A bit like I'm sure there's computers around that still run in MS-DOS, right? But the other thing is V6 though needs to be V4 needs to be supported by the ISPs. So there might be computers running in MS-DOS around the place. There's not so many ISPs with modem backs, right? The dial-up modem, and because the ISP when they deploy cable and DSL, they might have some customers that want to keep using. You know, that's enough for me. It's just the dial-up modem. But eventually the ISP says, well, you know, sorry, you might need it, but we're not maintaining a dial-up modem system just for a handful of users.
But the only way is
turn it off eventually. The V4 will be the same because it does cost to maintain the two protocols.
That's why I'm saying it's a costly affair.
Yeah, exactly.
The mandates coming from the government are more effective than the mandate coming from and that's why they heavily discuss in ASEAN meetings, environmental meetings, and the OECD. What we did as RIR, I can create awareness for them. We presented case studies, and that was effective. That's when they then started having mandates economical group level. So that's, I have a follow-up question on top of now. There was this curve saying, where are you with respect to IPv6 adoption? Are you an innovator or an early adopter? Are you a laggard? So we talk about countries, say like Australia, for example. Till late 2000s or early 2010s, Australia was one of the front runners in terms of IPv6 adoption, in terms of trainings that were being provided, in terms of even the deployment. I think there was even a small network that was created as V6 only network. So they could very well be taken as innovators, if not maybe as early adopters. But then we see they completely went back.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry for interrupting. Can we move this outside, because we don't have enough time.
And then building on top of what Sunny was saying, we create awareness. So as APNIC, when you are saying like we help in creating awareness, if there was, say, a sort of a regulation or sort of a guideline, because even in India, one of the points you mentioned, after Jio came in, Airtel, Idea, and a bunch of other telcos, they started adopting the same line. But that was not truly the case just because Jio was doing it. The actual reason was because India had a national IPv6 deployment roadmap. The Department of Telecommunication, every quarter they ask for how much IPv6 adoption has been done in your network, right? So similar to that, were there any steps taken in other countries, and what was APNIC's role, right? At least in terms of helping the regulators understand what's the important.
Let's talk about that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ball. Thank you for the understanding. Okay, so next we have Dr. Taib Ben Mariam, IPv6 Enhanced Council Coordinator, who is connected with us remotely. He was a co-founder and vice president of the French IPv6 Task Force. Currently, he is the vice chair of the IPv6 Forum and coordinator of the IPv6 Enhanced Council, a member of the France IPv6 Task Force, vice chair of the ITUT Focus Group. Mr. Taib? Dr. Taib, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my camera. So good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. So the purpose of my talk today is to set out a Service 6-based high-speed broadband internet from IPv6 Enhanced Council perspective. Let's move. Can you see my slide?
Yes, Dr. Taib, we can see your screen.
Yes. First of all, I would like to present the key driver scenario and requirement at Horizon 2030. So we have, and then we compare and contrast with capabilities that IP transport network can provide. So from requirement perspective, we have two categories of requirement. Let's say functional requirements and non-functional requirements. And non-functional requirements are dealing with societal oriented parts. So here we have the future metaverse applications that are main driver. And also we have immersive experience assurance based on home campus enterprise requiring 10 gigabit and above in terms of broadband. And at this Horizon 2020, 5G and 6G and AI will become the dominant technologies. And also we have enterprise cloudification and industry digitalization with proliferation of object in public sector. And here we have IP address. We need massive IP address in order to allocate ID to all these objects. And within real world and also virtual world has. And this was a question related to the management of IP address and IPAM, traditional IPAM, how to improve this IPAM systems. And also the good news is there is correlation between IPv6 deployment rate and GDP growth rate. And this allows us to mention that we are no longer promoting IPv6 has technology, but rather has utility, has Mr. Liu Chan from BII mentioned his presentation. Technology will disappear. And here we are now new argument that we can sell to decision maker that resonates with their objective, not promoting technology for the sake of technology. And from no function requirement side, we have this digital divide. Now we are about the divide based on, let's say, basic internet connectivity. We are reaching over 70% worldwide population. However, we have 2.5 billion people that are not connected. And beside that, we have over 10 billions objects that need to be connected in this IoT world. That is so the major requirement that we have to deal with. And also within this high-speed broadband internet we are talking about at the Horizon 2030, we have to prevent the risk of digital divide, second digital divide, with respect to internet quality between developed country and developing country, and also between the rural area and the urban area. So we need to take care of that. Now, if we look at the capability that IP transport network has to provide in order to meet these requirements, we need to upgrade access network up to 10 gigabit and above. We need also to upgrade all chain from metro to backbone to data center over 400, even 800 giga internet. And also we need to have programmability capabilities. And this, thanks to a SRv6 that has been presented earlier, that just allow us to have the seamless connectivity between all components, all domains, from access to data center crossing metro and backbone, with only one single protocol, that's SRv6. While today, as you may know, we have MPLS in backbone, and we have XVLAN in the data center, and we have boxes in the middle in order to cross from the one demand to demand, and we have the latency that will be augmented. So that is the good news, is that with SRv6, we have seamless connectivity in terms of protocol between all domain crossing from access to data center. Now, from no functional requirement, what would be the capabilities? Here, one of the capability based on technical requirement, but the body that will be in charge of addressing this non-functional requirement related to society impact and citizen impact is regulation and legislation. We need to set out national broadband plan for both urban and rural area as foundation for high-speed broadband. And it's exactly what Mr. Gupta from India in his speech mentioning that the broadband infrastructure plan to be carried out in the different regions. That is the foundation for high-speed internet. And also from IPv6 aspect, we need that government enact regulation and policy as with IPv6 only. And that has been said earlier. Some governments in China, in the US, has, as we said in the previous presentation, already set some requirement from policy-related aspect. So what we are doing in IPv6 and as Council, we developed what we named IPv6-driven digital economy ecosystem or framework with public sector stakeholder and provides sector stakeholder, and with two vision. Society-oriented view with KPI and also KVI, key value indicator, society-oriented part, and also from business aspect, we have IPv6 policy and market-oriented IPv6 policy with business KPI, as I mentioned here. And this framework can be used as, be seen as meta model that could be associated by our members into actionable framework by adding their own local requirements, because they are the only one that they know local requirements and challenges. So that is very important to mention. And based on that, we did the mapping or mirroring of this IPv6-driven digital economy ecosystem with metaverse ecosystem to address this broadband applications. And we developed what we named metaverse wrapper that wrap the two parts, metaverse ecosystem and IPv6 digital ecosystem. And we have two categories of metaverse. We have social metaverse at left-hand side, and we have business-oriented metaverse at right-hand side. And what is important is, and what is objective of this metaverse is to interact physical world and virtual world. And to do that, we need what we name metaverse infrastructure, that is black boxes that provide capability, network capabilities, compute capabilities, and storage capability, and addressing capabilities. And this shape as IPv6-based high-speed broadband internet or IPv6-based high-speed broadband ecosystem. Now, from slicing rate aspect, there was already presentation, but just a summary. What we want to achieve is to transform our traditional network, as imagined here, into computer. That is the concept. Network has computer. And to do that, we need to provide program and inject this program into a packet. And this program will be executed by node of the network. And then we have also slicing idea that could be also added, as I mentioned in the previous presentation. And then we have slicing our network in various multiple slicing or private network. And what is important from IPv6 Council is to deliver this macro, high-level macro design at the bottom. We have these 4 pipeline tributaries, 10 gigabit home, business, campus, and all these 4 tributaries or pipeline need to be aggregated in metro network on 400 gig, and also in the backbone and 800 gig, and in data center. And thanks to our IPv6 that we have, it allows us to unify crossing all this domain in seamless manner and to allow us to program the path. And this path programmability feature is very important. Now, from within IPv6 Enhancement Council, wanted to develop and to build this a service-based high-speed broadband internet with support of a service-based logo program, as Mr. Krishna and Mr. Diyushan presented. And we have our IPv6 Enhancement Council. And then to do that, we established a legal statement, the first one on broadband application with IoT metaverse that has been created 2004. And we established a liaison last year with this, and we provide contribution in order to make IPv6 has all technology along with digital twin and other technology has a blockchain that is in the space of this metaverse. And second, legal statement is about broadband infrastructure. And this is the reason why we set up a legal statement with broadband, all broadband associations last year, and then combining the two legal statement and order, we are able now to develop our IPv6-based high-speed broadband internet framework, and we can deliver our white papers and also guide our member in this journey towards a service-based IPv6-based high-speed broadband internet. That is very important, that we are not working in a standalone manner, rather we are cooperating, we are with other SDOs in order to facilitate to get benefit from all this input to our member. So that is in a nutshell what I want to share with you. And thank you once again for the invitation.
Thank you, Dr. Taib. Any questions? I think there are no questions, Dr. Taib. Thank you so much for presenting and sharing.
Thank you.
Moving on, our next speaker is the president of IPv6 Forum, who has held this position since 1999, Dr. Latif Ladid. He is the chair of 5G World Alliance since 2015. He is also the chair of IEEE Communication Society for IoT and 5G. Dr. Latif.
Yes, thank you, Wali, for organizing this event, and I'm very pleased to see some of my humble friends, as well as inviting Paul Wilson with us, to harmonize our message to Asia, which is the winner in this adoption of IPv6, as 50% and more are coming out there, and we would expect a lot of innovation to come from your part of the world. This is really amazing, as the internet has been a victim of many people. First, it was shut down from 85 until 91, so NSFNet was taken down, and Al Gore took the benefit for his election back in 91, to say that he invented the internet. So fake news existed a long time ago. And we have forked basically the internet to an internet, which has created a lot of monopolies. As a matter of fact, everyone is a tourist on the internet. Paul has given some very good examples of the internet running like the phone system in the 60s, and that is true. So we have more client server, which creates monopolies. So we don't have the end-to-end empowered end users. So our work is basically to move to IPv6 only. IPv6 was designed as a clean slate approach, which means that it should not be compatible with IPv4, because you want to divorce the internet from IPv4, especially NAT and CGNAT, in order to have, a production protocol instead of a research protocol that we have today, where everyone can mess up with it. And it's very important, as Paul Wilson mentioned, that you have a thermic car and an electric car. Matter of fact, the internet is an electric car because the routing behind it is an autonomic system, which means when it sees IPv4 or IPv6, it routes them properly without any problems. So the internet is an electric car right from the beginning. So doing dual stack at the beginning was very important, so that the routers can see whether the packet's IPv4 or IPv6. And I will tell you later on some examples where you can also create transition mechanisms, as the ITF transitions were very confusing at the very beginning and was not properly done. So the case of China doing that properly is very important. So very important is to bring back the end-to-end model and to get modern internet deployed to everyone, especially we have seen the deployment of Apple, of the iPhone in 2008. It basically killed 3G. That's why 4G has adopted IPv6. And this is where we have now basically the killer application of the internet in the 3G, 4G, 5G, and soon 6G. And IoT is still waiting for the deployment, because most of the IoT devices are not deployed with an IP stack, not even an IP4 stack, let alone that. So all of them are still on just Bluetooth or the likes. So the innovation is going to come when you have smart IoT devices having an IPv6 protocol. So I always have fun telling people that anyone who is using NAT is like sitting in the luggage class, and only the routers that have IPv4 are basically in economy. And so those that are using IPv6 today, they don't know that they're on a business class. And when we move to IPv6 only, plus 5G, cloud computing, and IoT devices, will be all of us in first class, and that should be a good thing to work on altogether. So in terms of deployment, I see that China always showing something like 40 million. Matter of fact, CNIC has its own data, and currently it is 780 million IPv6 users. So by far, the largest country in the world deploying IPv6 and properly. So this shows that, despite the issues we have with deployment of NAT to CGNAT and so on forth, IPv6 made it through. Obviously, NAT has won about 15 years for this NAT club. I call them the NAT evangelists, but they don't have forums. I wish they had a NAT forum. Then we could have had a very good discussion with them. It would be a lot of fun. But when you look at the deployment of IPv6 only, it already happened back in 2005 with CERNET 2. And they had a magic transition mechanism called IVI. IV is 4 and VI is 6. And that's the one they have used right from the beginning. That should be the protocol we should use when we go into IPv6 only. So in the meantime, we have MAP, PT, and so on, which is done by certain operators where they can get IP4 address space. So they do IPv6 and then they use MAP PT. But IVI will be the best one to use because it is used for 20 million studs in China. So as Paul mentioned, so the Czech Republic government has said that by 2032, they will move to IPv6 only for the government networks. But the thing in the US, they're already going for 80% by 2025. And that's a mandate. Most of the mandates, unfortunately, for IPv6, they were not funded. That's why a lot of companies or a lot of countries are saying we'll do IPv6 only, but they don't put any funding behind it. So this is the elements of the internet, it's free of charge. And most of the CEOs and CTOs, they think it should happen just free of charge, as they should know that it is part of the infrastructure, as Tayyeb has mentioned. And this is one of the things that we are going to go for, is to look at the backbone, what is called now Net 5.5G, is to upgrade the backbone, so fiber or whatever it is for 5G and 6G, as well as fixed networks, in order to take care of the traffic that's going to come from IPv6 only, especially for the billions of devices that are going to be IPv6 only in the IoT sphere. So a recent study from Roland Berger, which is a German consultancy, and they say that by 2030, IPv6 will have an impact of $10 trillion. So I would recommend to look into that report. It's quite amazing how they show that the real internet is going to have a lot of innovation. And very important, also the governments are going to play a big role, but obviously the manufacturing is going to be very important. And it is obvious when you see that only 50% is doing IPv6, and the rest is the enterprise. So you have two kinds of enterprise. You have the internet enterprises and just internet user enterprises. These guys do not know how to do that. So we hope that the cloud services are going to help out. And as a matter of fact, as mentioned by Paul, AWS is charging for IPv4, and they will get about $1 billion out of IPv4 charging. So it's so most probably this kind of incentive, it's done by a lot of cloud computing companies, are going to wake up these sleeping enterprises that are not using the internet properly in their countries. So quick, in terms of some of the web generations, so a lot of people talk about Web 2, which is really not a standardized way of promoting the web. Tim Berners-Lee invented this web, and he corrected it with Web 3.0. And then we have these guys coming up with Web 3, which is for blockchain, but it's not standardized. We have a bit of confusion here. We have done some work with Dave Waggart in terms of Web of Things, to downsize XML for IoT devices, and still in the work. So here we have a bit of confusion happening these days in this area. So in terms of web wireless generations, you can imagine when we started the IPv6 forum, after the IETF IPv6 task force has to be shut down. So I proposed to the IPv6 task force to not drop the IETF v6 task force, but we're going to use it for promotion of IPv6 around the world. And obviously we were looking for killer applications. So we found 3G, and at that time, they didn't want to have IP, let alone IPv6. They wanted to have WAP, which is Wireless Access Protocol. We could convince them after 6 months of negotiations, and they said, no, the internet at that time is something just for stupid people, and it's open source and so on and so forth. And we told them we had about 500 million people using the internet at that time. And in the end, they did it. And we created with it the second largest internet revolution. And most probably the next one will be combined with blockchain and AI. And we are working on that item as well. So you will see this Net 5.5G to be very important in the future, to accelerate the deployment of the backbone, to cope with all this traffic coming up. 6G will have, at the very beginning, some interesting indoor terabits access for in the enterprise and so on and so forth. But I was very surprised by NTT Docomo to have put terahertz on cars, and the cars can talk to each other using terahertz modems. So there are many new innovative things to be done in this area using IPv6. So in IoT, as I said, IoT is not deployed the way it should be. Matter of fact, Kevin Ashton was the guy who coined the words network of Internet of Things, but it should be just network of things, because they are not IP, because he was promoting RFID, and until today, nobody's using IP on RFID, and there's still, you have to go through an RFID reader now to get to certain data. So the third generation IoT is one will have two-way things to things. And this is what we have to focus on. So anything that we are running with IP4net is just some kind of, centralized IoT, but it's not really the big thing that's going to be, a lot of people talk about 30, 40, 50 billion. That's not going to happen with the current protocols. And I think data generations, we will see a rather big IoT data, which is going to be very important in the future, way beyond the big data of today. And cloud computing, as a matter of fact, 2 South Africans have designed the elastic IP and were hired by Amazon that deployed AWS with them. And as of late, we've been in touch with Alexandra Guidet, who has added IPv6 to their cloud services, a genius lady. We wish to have more of these ladies on IPv6 to do fantastic things. With AI, AI currently is a weak protocol because it's pattern-based. So it's one of the biggest plagiarism system in the world. We have to make sure that the data is really verified. And you can do it only with things like blockchain. But blockchain is going to be very tough to deploy. They will take a lot of initiatives, especially at the regulator level, to verify that the data, whatever it is put in, is verifiable. And obviously, the next thing would be, AI, what I call AI 2, which will have thinking machines. And this is where it would be very dangerous that machines are going to be most probably better than the human beings. So it's like having new aliens coming from outside of this world. And we have to have different regulations for them, to take care of them. Very quickly on cybersecurity and generation. So, on ARPANET, Bob Thomas has created the first computer worm called the Creeper. And as amazingly, Ray Thompson, who is the inventor of the mouse, as well as the email, he adopted the ad that we are using today. And he created the first antivirus Reaper. But on the internet, in the last years, we have a disaster with ransomware and so on and so forth. So hacking really a very big business. And currently with NAT, anything is hackable. So if we promote that we can secure properly IPv6 networks, especially with VPNs and so on and so forth, which we can't do today because NAT kills any VPN that you have in your place. So that's why only rich companies can have proper security and everyone else is in the clear. As a matter of fact, our email should not be in the clear. You should accept the email and then open it with your private key. So that's why TLS and SSL and TLS are not working on the internet today. And I think we have a speaker who is Lawrence Hughes with us. I hope he will join us to talk about this one as well. So I'm not going to go into these details. I think I will finish because I don't have much time. So I would just say that, we would like you to use IPv6. With Windsurf, we support that right from the beginning. And he did a great job with us getting even Google to do IPv6 and also find the numbers of IPv6 around the world. So I would like to very much appreciate the work Suresh and the team and joining hands with APNIC in order to do exactly what Paul said. Let's go for IPv6 only. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Latif. Do we have any questions for Dr. Latif? Okay, we don't have any questions, Dr. Latif. Thank you very much for sharing your insights. Next, we would like to request Mr. Carlos, Chairman of the Spain IPv6 Council, who is connected with us remotely. He received the Telefonica Bravo Award for the promotion of Telefonica's participation in the World IPv6 Day and made the first connection of Telefonica R&D. Mr. Carlos, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you share your slides, please?
Yes, I think I'm sharing the screen. Is that right? Or did I fail with that? Let me do it again. Hold on.
No, it was shared. Let's go back.
Just a minute, Mr. Carlos.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Is it there?
Yes.
Great. Well, first, thank you very much. It's an honor for me to talk to the ABAC IPv6 Council meeting today. I'm based in Madrid, in Spain. I am myself the chair of the IPv6 Council in Spain, appointed some years ago by Mr. Latif Larit. And my idea is to tell you about the focus that we have in the IPv6 Council of Spain, right? We are focused on enterprises and public administration, right? And I want to show you that even when a country is going with some lag compared to others regarding the deployment to end users, there is still a lot of work to do in parallel, right? Because that was exactly the case of Spain, right? As I will point out. So the stories that we have found that the focus is moving from end users that are getting IPv6 transparently in the end to organizations, right? So we are moving from ISPs delivering IPv6 access to users to IT providers providing solutions for organizations, being private, in the private sector, like enterprises, or in the public sector, like public administration organizations, right? So as Latif was saying, now is the time of cloud providers, security providers, right, tool providers that have to feed all the needs of these organizations, right? This is what we are seeing. And the point of the IP6 Council in Spain is to provide a community, all the community facilities, documents,